What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
What's up? I'm EJ. This is 40 Days, 40 Nights. This is day number 16. Didn't have the mic soundboard on, which is why there was no audio for the first 15 minutes of this show. But thank you guys for joining us again. I'm sorry if you could not hear me for the first 15 minutes. Of course, that was an audio technical glitch, so apologies for that. And of course, we got on a little late here as well, so apologies for that as well. But again, we had a great show for you guys today. We'll talk plenty of stuff we got going on. We're talking Klint Kubiak. He's been hired as a Raiders head coach. We got also a head coaching hire with the Arizona Cardinals as well. We got some NBA All-Stars that were revealed. We got LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, Karl Towns among those names. Some of them a little controversial. There were some, I would say, definitely some snubs. Definitely some people you say, well, what the hell happened here? But I think that at the end of the day, that this is going to be an interesting All-Star game, considering it's going to be a USA versus world situation. So we got to figure out how that's going to work, if they have enough guys to do that. If they don't, the rules are they have to actually add players. So we'll see if they have enough for that. And then we'll talk about the Grammys. It was a big night for Kendrick Lamar. He passed Jay-Z for most guys ever won by a Grammy. Most Grammys ever won by a hip-hop artist. You know, he passed Jay-Z. Jay-Z at 25, I believe. Kendrick Lamar now at 27. So we'll break that down. We also got some funny videos to talk about. Speaking about the NBA All-Star reserves that were announced on NBC last night. It was the first NBC Sunday night basketball doubleheader. You had Knicks and Lakers, and then you had Thunder versus the Nuggets later on in the evening. And there was some weird stuff happened during that early show. They have a pregame show prior to the game. And like I said earlier, when nobody could hear me, because I did not have my mic on, what I said earlier in the show, which stands here, is I really like the coverage from NBC and from Amazon. I think their studio shows have been what the NBA has needed and what, quite frankly, a lot of people have been asking for. I'm not to disrespect the inside the NBA crew. They're obviously legends, and what they've done with their show has been phenomenal. And there were a lot of folks who were very upset when it seemed like they were on their last legs and they were essentially going to be no longer a part of the NBA aspect of this upcoming season. But I think there were a lot of fans that grew tired of the act, right? Tired of so much of the coverage being negative, so much of the coverage being really not based in fact or reality. It seemed like there really wasn't as much, what's the word I'm looking for? This didn't seem as engaged. Like it seemed like in some ways they were mailing it in some aspects when it came to just like talking about certain teams, talking about certain players, and not really quite understanding the current storylines or the current things that were going on with actual teams when they were making these commentaries and making these takes. So I think what we've seen from the NBA team on NBC and what we've seen from Peacock, again, or Peacock, which is of course NBC, and Amazon, I think again has been welcomed. But yesterday's show got a little weird. Yesterday's show got a little random, and it was kind of funny. It was interesting. So we'll play some videos from that. I also saw something over the weekend that I absolutely could not understand. It is one of the most inexplicable things I've ever seen in a sporting event. You watch enough live sports, you think you've seen it all. And then I realized I had not, because I saw something over the weekend that I never thought I would see, but I did. And it's not surprising that it happened in boxing, because boxing, of all the sports, I pause to say major sports. I do love boxing, to be clear, but I pause to say major sports because we kind of just know where things stand when it comes to boxing, where it was and where it is now. But it is a sport a lot of people watch. Still millions of fans, both here in America and across the world, that are still very much into boxing. It's not surprising, though, given the absurdity of boxing at times that would happen in the boxing ring. But we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to shout out you guys, man. Shout out to everybody watching the show. We're live now. We've been live before I got the messages and comments 15 minutes. Well, we're now live with audio. So we had an AV situation here finally with audio and visuals. We're live here on X, EJ_Stewart on X, Action EJ on Instagram, and of course streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you give us as much support as you can. If you were watching this video, I know a lot of people go back to my older videos and watch, and then they'll be like, why is there no audio for the first 15 minutes? Apologies. But shout out to the people in the comments who were able to point out that I had audio issues. Otherwise, I might have done this entire show and never known that I had no audio. So I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you guys watching. Again, it's 40 days, 40 nights. It's crazy to think that we're in week number 4 here. It's so crazy that last week I kept thinking we were still in week 2. I was like, oh, week 2 here, and wrapping up. I'm like, and then I got to the end of the week. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't week 2. This is week 3. This thing is flying by fast. Flying by fast, man. But again, you guys have been rocking me for these 40 days. I do greatly appreciate it. Again, support the channel. Subscribe, New Generation Media on YouTube. Make sure you also subscribe to us on X, New Generation Pod on X, New Generation Podcast on Instagram. And of course, follow me on X, EJ_Stewart, and Instagram Action Live. And Instagram, Action EJ. And what I was saying prior to the audio issues was, the Raiders, they hired their new offensive coordinator or new head coach, who will be offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, Klint Kubiak. Kubiak has engineered one of the best offenses in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this move is not official because he is still coaching. Obviously, he has I would say a pretty big game with the Super Bowl. I think that's a pretty massive one, right? So he's got the Super Bowl coming up here in this upcoming weekend, the Super Bowl week. So I'm really excited about that. We'll have plenty of guests this week, hopefully, to talk about the game. But to start off the week, you have the OC for the NFC champs, Kubiak, expected to be hired by the Raiders. This deal's not official, but it is expected that once the Super Bowl ends, he will eventually then be hired by the Raiders. Adam Schefter put it, the Raiders want him, he wants the Raiders. So at this point, all we need is signed paperwork, and that will indeed happen. Now, like I said, I think that Kubiak is injured in one of the best offenses in the NFL. The Seahawks finished 3rd in points. They finished 3rd in rushing. They finished 8th in total yards. And what I've appreciated about Kubiak to me is he's brought a balanced attack to Seattle. You have an awesome running game. You also have a passing game that we know has been explosive. And when you think about this Seahawks season that we just had coming up, when you think about the players that they've had, when you think about who they've lost, kind of like I talked about last week when I gave John Schneider his flowers, when I said that I think this guy is maybe the most underrated executive in all of sports. When you consider like he's been there this whole time for like the Legion of Boom era and all this stuff, and then he had to do a hard reboot. Or really, it was a soft reboot in many ways because it was kind of like a trickle effect when it came to like, okay, first it was Russ. Okay, first it was the Legion of Boom guys slowly kind of taking that defense apart. Then it was Russ who won it out. Then it was Pete Carroll. And then you get to Mike McDaniel, and now you get to this team. And actually Geno Smith was still also kind of a part of this like Seahawk era of football that I think brought a lot of fans a lot of excitement and a lot of hope. And he had to slowly trickle that down. And you would think with all that happening, you'd have to have a flame out year where you win 3 games or 4 games or something like that, and you get a top pick in order to turn this around. Never had to do that. No tank happened. There was no cratering for the Seahawks. They had one bad year with Russ when they drafted Witherspoon. But besides that, they haven't had like a year where they won 2 games or anything like that. And that team coming into the season, when you lose DK Metcalf and you lose Geno Smith, a lot of folks not looking at them saying, oh, that's a team that's on the rise. That's an offense that's going in the right direction. I think a lot of folks looked at that team and said, for an NFC West that was getting so much better, they may be on the decline. They may be a team to look at and say things might go backwards, not forwards, even though Mike McDaniel in his first year had a pretty good year. And Klint Kubiak calling the plays for that offense. And I want to be clear, like their defense is also phenomenal. It is a big reason why the Seahawks are here in the Super Bowl. So it's not just about Klint Kubiak's offense. But when you consider that Sam Darnold, who a lot of people had question marks about whether or not he could continue the success he had with the Minnesota Vikings, he could step in with the Seahawks and play as well as he did for this season. And the fact that JSN, who is a top pick as a wide receiver, but has never been a wide receiver number one, did anyone think he was going to be able to be one of the top receivers in yards this year? Was it anybody believe that he was going to be a record breaker for the Seattle Seahawks, considering they've had some pretty damn good receivers there, and one is Steve Largent? Like, that seemed like nothing that was going to happen, and he has been phenomenal, and he looks like one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's opened up the running game in a major way. Kenneth Walker, who I think was off to a good start in his career, now having a great season, having a great postseason, and the Seahawks have obviously had one of the best running games this season. So Kubiak, I think, can do wonders for the Raiders. We talk about Kenneth Walker, a guy who, again, has been productive, but I don't think he's been a star per se. He became a star this year. And you look at Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders, somebody who I think a little bit of an up and down rookie year, nothing special from him for a guy who I think a lot of people thought was special. That's why they advocated for him to be drafted as high as he was, despite being a running back. I think you hope that someone like Klint Kubiak can open that up and be the guy that maybe unlock him. But the most important thing with the Raiders, of course, is going to be the development of Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza's coming in. This is a team that's been looking for their true blue franchise quarterback. They had Derek Carr for a bunch of years, and I guess in theory he was their franchise quarterback, but there wasn't a lot of winning, right? There were a lot of missed playoff appearances. There were a lot of mediocrity. This was not a team that was seeing themselves consistently in the postseason, even though Derek Carr had a long stint there. And they've bounced around various different quarterbacks since letting go of Derek Carr. But the reality is maybe saying that the Raiders just haven't been able to find their guy to move forward with. And they have the opportunity with the number one pick. I will guarantee you they will draft Fernando Mendoza with that number one pick. And I think when you look at Klint Kubiak and the ability for him to usher in his development as a rookie, if I'm a Raider fan, I'm very excited about that. I think Kubiak not only was good with the Seahawks this year, I actually thought last season, even though the Seahawks, the Saints weren't a good team, and even though they obviously kind of started to fall apart towards the end, I thought Kubiak had a good year last year. Early in the season, they had some of the most explosive offensive performances of the year. Everybody was like, who the hell is this guy? Who the hell? We didn't even know. A lot of people didn't know who Klint Kubiak was before last season. And a lot of it was because of how the Saints started that year. Obviously, things didn't go well towards the end, and there were some injuries that mounted up. But when they were healthy, they were cooking. So Kubiak has distinguished himself to be as probably one of the best offensive play calls in the league. You watched the play call against the 49ers a couple weeks ago and the Rams. He had those teams in his back pocket. I mean, the Seahawks were able to do whatever they wanted offensively. And again, it's a good team, but I don't think it's a team people look at it and say, oh, I can get any coordinator and I can do work with those guys. I think nobody thinks that. I think you look at this and you got to give a lot of credit to his play calling, his offense. So if you're a Raider fan, I think there's reason to be excited. Now, the question now becomes beyond what Klint Kubiak can do or what Fernando Mendoza could do. It's how will the team support both Kubiak and Mendoza with skilled players and a competent offensive line around those guys. Because that's really where things have fallen apart for the Raiders. They probably have, outside of the Jets, maybe the worst skill group in the NFL. Again, Jeanty was not special. You have Brock Bowers. Okay, that's one star. And there's not a lot else out there. They have one of the worst receiving cores. They have obviously another tight end, Michael Mayer, who is a second, Mayer is a first round pick, former first round pick, but they loved him so much that they drafted another guy as a tight end of the first round pick. So he hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype as well. So that's going to be the big question mark. It's really not going to be, I think, so much in terms of success. It's not going to just hinge on, oh, they got Klint Kubiak and this is going to work, or now they got Fernando Mendoza and this is going to work. It's will they be able to finally fix the offensive line? I think they had high hopes for the line coming into the season because they played well, and there were some young players that showed some promise the previous year. This year, I think it showed that they're going to need to make some moves probably on that offensive line. So can they improve the offensive line, and can they improve the skill position players? And that's where Tom Brady's going to come in. I don't know how it seems to be conflicting things of how much influence he has, but I don't think that it's absolutely a coincidence at all that Klint Kubiak got this job and Tom Brady called his last two games. Tom Brady got a front row seat to what Klint Kubiak did to the San Francisco 49ers, and he had a front row seat, or maybe a press box seat, or what he did to the LA Rams. So he's seeing this in person. He's watching these games and like watching the Seahawks, watching Sam Darnold. You're also doing these pre-production meetings, which who knows how much he can or can't do. I know there was like Brady rules they were trying to instill because he is indeed the Raiders, whatever, minority owner is definitely his title. We don't know if he's football operations, whatever, but he has some say. And it's someone that has gotten probably intimate knowledge to some degree, at least, on the process that's happening in Seattle. I don't think that's an accident at all that Tom Brady watched Klint Kubiak have the level of success that he had and said, that's the guy you want to hire. I watched this guy just light up the scoreboard in the postseason against good teams. This is who they need to hire. So now he goes to Las Vegas. It's going to be a new day, and I think that if you're a Raider fan, I think this is where you could actually finally have some optimism. It's been in many years where I would say that it's tough to be optimistic about what's been going on with the Raider organization and what's been going on with the team, the ownership group, and the owner and Mark Davis hasn't inspired a lot of hope. Tom Brady in year one, the fact that he signed off on saying, yep, bring in Pete Carroll, yep, bring in Chip Kelly, yep, bring in Geno Smith. I think if you're looking at that, saying Brady's ledger as Illuminati figure of the Raider organization in terms of football operations, whatever it is, hasn't gone quite as well. I think you feel like, okay, this is now the reset we were asking for. They probably needed to make this reset last year when Brady came in and it seemed like that front office came in and said, no, we got to win right now, which was one of the worst decisions that team could have made because that was so obvious that team had needed a major rechange, a major reboot. They needed to get bad. They got bad kind of by accident, right? Like these veteran players, this veteran coach coached them to tanking, basically. They coached their way to being the worst team in the NFL kind of by accident, but they came in not with that expectation. The expectation was actually, no, we're trying to actually win immediately, trying to maybe be a fringe playoff team. So they by accident got to where they need to be. And I think now, considering where you're at this year, if you would have told me last year that they got a number one pick quarterback and they hired Klint Kubiak as their head coach, I say, okay, the Raiders are starting their rebuild and it's going in the right direction. Cool, let's see how this goes. To do it a year later and say now you're getting a Heisman winning quarterback, you're getting Klint Kubiak after he takes the Seahawks to the Super Bowl, I think you feel even better about where they're at, despite the fact that you had to sit through a absolute miserable season in Las Vegas. So the Raiders, I think, they've become now, I think, a team to watch this offseason. I think in a team that I think I will have great interest in the upcoming next season. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. This is not going to be a team that I think is going to come in next year and win 13 games. But again, Mendoza, I think, has shown that he's got the goods. I think that Klint Kubiak has shown that he's got the goods. So if they can get this thing right, and they can get Ashton Janty right at running back, then the Raiders, maybe you're looking at the beginning of something special there. So we'll see what happens with Las Vegas. They hire Klint Kubiak as their next head coach. Let's get it going here. Let's keep it moving. Another head coaching hire. This one was official. So Cardinals hire Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. Yes, he is the brother of Green Bay Packers head coach Matt LaFleur. So Mike and Matt, now two guys in the NFL. I'm not sure if the Cardinals are on the Packers schedule this year. I hope they are, because then we can maybe get a Packers Cardinals game. We have a brother matchup. I know they did play this past season, so that makes it probably unlikely, but I guess I have to look that up to see if that's a possibility. But Mike LaFleur, he now becomes head coach for the Cardinals. He served as Rams offensive coordinator for the past 3 seasons. He also previously served as Jets OC prior to that under Robert Saleh. Despite the 3-14 season the Cardinals had, they were not the worst offensive team. I actually looked at their metrics, and I was actually surprised at how they were okay. Like, they finished 7th in passing yards. I know that some of that comes with them being behind in games so often. I think they also were first in pass attempts. So this was not a team that really could run the ball much, and they were behind a lot of games. They had to throw the ball a ton. But they did finish 7th in passing and 18th in total yards. So I think they were around 23, in total points. So, I mean, they weren't lighting the world on fire, but it wasn't a completely just like non-functioning offense. They had some success, both with Murray and Jacoby Brissett, but turnovers and, again, a poor defense that fell apart this year, and kind of seemed to quit on Jonathan Gannon. Didn't allow this team to have any success. They finished 3-14. Questions are going to surround what's going to happen with Kyler Murray, right? So he is the incumbent. He got injured, quote unquote, and then he was coming back from his injury, and then they decided that he could not come back. I'm doing this all in quotation marks. And therefore, he was sat out and was essentially, dismissed for the rest of the season. So it's expected that he's going to be a guy that won't be in Arizona past the season. We did a story a couple of days ago where the Cardinals are expecting that they actually may get a good package for trade compensation for Kyler Murray because there's only one solid first-round quarterback, definitely one guy that's probably going to go in the top 5 of this draft at the very least. That's being very conservative. Like, that helped their positioning when it comes to trading Kyler Murray. Murray has a contract that isn't great, but not awful. He's not making like $70 million. I think it's like $39 or $40 million. And it's movable, and the cap hit that they take also isn't awful as well. So a trade very well could happen for Kyler Murray in a quarterback market that is not the best. So that's going to be the big question for Mike LaFleur coming in is what are they going to do at quarterback? Because it seems like the front office and the ownership group, they're done with Kyler Murray, so you're not going to have Murray, which is probably fine because I don't think Murray fits what Mike LaFleur wants to do. He comes from the Shanahan and McVay tree, right? He is actually the 6th Sean McVay disciple to earn their first head coaching job after leaving LA. There were, the Zach Taylors, there was the Brandon Staley, he's a defensive guy, but there are all these guys who have left LA and immediately become head coaches after working under the Rams. A lot of these guys are still in the NFL. I think all of them are still in the NFL. So he's the next guy here, but that's going to be the big question as an offensive coach. What are you going to do at quarterback? I expect it to be a veteran guy. This feels like the spot for Kirk Cousins to be. Similar to what we've seen with other veteran quarterbacks playing in Arizona. Kurt Warner, Carson Palmer. Indoors, nice weather, a division that has mostly good weather, except for if you play Seattle really late in the season and it could snow or you could have really cold, rainy weather. And it's rain typically. But besides that, you play in the Dome for most of your season. The Rams, one game in the Dome. The Niners, typically a pretty good weather team. Even in the winter, it's not too bad. So, Kirk Cousins, older, Achilles. It seems like he would make sense as a guy that could potentially go over there. In fact, one of the teams they be playing against, the 49ers, they play on natural grass, I believe. So, if you're worried about Achilles, they play on grass. So, I look at Kirk Cousins, who has played under Shanahan-type systems throughout his career. He played under Kyle Shanahan, literally under Kyle Shanahan in Washington. And, of course, playing with the Vikings, he put up all those big stats. Playing under Kevin O'Connell, that also is a Shanahan-McVay-type offense. So, for Arizona, Mike LaFleur, he comes in as a Shanahan-McVay disciple. They're looking at quarterbacks in this market. Mac Jones also could be in play here, too. I think he certainly could be an option as a younger guy, especially they want a younger guy who they want to see if maybe they could actually, stumble their way into, an actual franchise quarterback. Mac Jones would make sense because Mac Jones, now just had a year in San Francisco where he was playing under Kyle Shanahan and actually playing, not just riding the bench. Like Sam Darnold, he was a lot more of a question mark going to Minnesota because we had actually not seen him really play in San Francisco for the year he was there. He played the last game of the season. He kind of didn't even look that great. So it was like, who knows what you're going to get from him. We've seen what he was in Carolina and New York. It wasn't good. It turned out he was phenomenal with the Minnesota Vikings, and he's remained phenomenal, taking his team to the Super Bowl. But with Mac Jones, it was different. He was the next guy in the Kyle Shanahan rehabilitation project of former failed first-round pick QBs. And he came in, and because of Brock Purdy's injury, he had to play, and he had some good games. And I am someone who I said all the arrows and disses to Mac Jones. Of course, he's a former Patriots quarterback, so I didn't have love for Mac Jones. But to be honest, I also wasn't really the biggest fan of him coming out of college. I'm always wary of the guys who are throwing to elite receivers who are wide open and the windows are massive to throw in. The best comparison I have for him is he kind of reminded me of a lot of those Ohio State quarterbacks that we hoped were going to be good but weren't. Like Justin Fields, R.I.P. Dwayne Haskins. These guys who would come in, and C.J. Stroud looked good initially, but that's looking dicey too. A lot of those guys came in and they put up massive numbers. You're throwing for 3,000, 4,000 yards. You're throwing 40 touchdowns, and you're like, how can this guy not work out in the NFL? It's like, well, if you watch the tape of these Ohio State receivers and the offense they're running, these guys are running wide open. And if you're a quarterback, and then they typically had very good offensive lines. So if you're a quarterback who can deliver the football with any modicum of skill, you should be able to have some success there. Now, Mac Jones didn't play, obviously, at Ohio State. But with Devontae Smith and what he was doing and what those receivers were doing at Alabama, like, he had John Mechie. Like, he had NFL receivers. These guys were just running free every game. I mean, that Alabama offense was a video game offense. We kind of underrate that. Like, I think because we kind of think always about, you know, what we saw from LSU when we think about the greatest offenses of all time in recent memory. That Alabama offense also, when Mac Jones slinging the rock and Devontae Smith winning the Heisman, that also was one of the best passing offenses in the history of college football. But that was a team, again, when I looked at him coming out of the draft, I said, he's throwing a wide open guys. I don't see a special arm. He's not all that athletic. He looked to me like an average guy in terms of where he'd be as an NFL guy. So for me, I'm drafting an average player. I don't know if I'm drafting a quarterback there in the first round. And that's what he looked like in New England. He looked like an average guy. Even in the year where they went to the, I know he got a lot of credit for them making the playoffs and him being a Pro Bowl that first year. Look at his numbers. He was average. He was average. He was fine. He wasn't like he was awful. And he won a lot of games. And I do think wins aren't a quarterback-only stat, but I think it is a quarterback stat. So having won, I think he deserves credit. But I had a lot of doubts about where he was at that point in his career. And I was impressed with him this year. I'll be honest. Like, watching Mac Jones, remembering what he was with the Patriots, and then watching him with the and then, by the way, I also watched him with the Jaguars, too, because he played last year. And last year, he was turning the ball over a lot. I didn't love his process and how he was playing last year either. So I was out on Mac Jones. But then I watched him this year. I was like, he looks pretty good. Can't lie. Now, will this work with maybe a Mac Jones and Mike LaFleur pairing? Mike LaFleur has been with the Rams. He obviously did not call plays for the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, that's always going to be Sean McVay. But you did see Matt Stafford put together what I think was his best season. He may have had more yards in the season. I think he threw 5,000 yards one year, so he definitely did. But I think he's going to win MVP, and I think he deserves it. And in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Now, how much of that is him, just him and his talent and just his experience? How much of that is Sean McVay? And is any part of that Mike LaFleur? And that's just a question that there's no way for us to know. No one from LA can come out and say, oh, this guy Mike LaFleur, he's just a bump. He hasn't actually accomplished or actually done anything for his offense. They're not going to come out and say that. They're not going to bury that guy. So we don't know. He could be a pencil pusher. But he is their offensive coordinator. They obviously did value him to some degree, though it seemed like Nate Sheethouse has been the guy that, like, as far as, like, who the LA coaches have been pushing as someone who they really like, they think is going to be someone with a super bright future. It seemed to be Sheethouse, not Mike LaFleur. I'm not sure if some of that comes from the fact that, like, this was essentially Sheethouse's, like, introduction to the NFL, was working with the Rams, whereas Mike LaFleur has been around a little bit. He's 38 years old. He's going to be 39. But LaFleur and what his role was and what he may be able to pick up from working under Sean McVay, I think is going to be the thing to follow. It's stunning that he's an NFL head coach, given his Jets stint. I'll just say that as a Jets fan. Like, I'm somebody that watched Mike LaFleur as Jets OC. And I'll be honest. I thought at times he got way too much criticism. And if you go back to my tweets, if you go back to whatever, I feel like that would be supported. I don't think I'm making that up. I've criticized every offensive coordinator for the Jets. I'm sure I also was critical of him. The Jets were not a good offensive team when he was here. But it seemed to me, and he basically was the OC, you know, when they brought in Zach Wilson, which turned out to be a terrible decision for a lot of reasons. But the main reason being that Zach Wilson wasn't ready to be an NFL quarterback. And he may never be. So it was just a bad draft pick, one. But two, there were so many issues with the offensive line that the Jets did not fix. The Jets had some skill player issues that they could not fix. But then as time went on, and we saw some of the things the Jets were able to do, like they were able to run the ball at times. They did have plays where guys were getting open, and Zach Wilson is just forcing interceptions. Like, I felt like he got a bad rap. I felt like he was a young OC that I was kind of would have loved to have seen grow into the role more, because I think there was something there. And it just didn't happen because Zach Wilson, once you fail the young quarterback, you have no shot. And and that's fair. Like, I don't think that's that's expected. Well, rather it's expected. I think if we're being real about what the issues were with the Jets during that time, he was the offensive play caller. That is his only offensive play calling experience. I am curious if he's going to call plays. I would assume he will. I don't know why he wouldn't, but he didn't call plays in LA. That's just a thing to note. He didn't call plays in LA. That's McVay. So like, will he bring in an offensive coordinator to call plays for him? I don't know. But what I do know is when he did call plays, the Jets obviously did not have a good offense, but they did have an ability to run the ball. They did, in many ways, I think it wasn't so much the scheme. It seemed to be the guy pulling the string, the guy calling the shots on the field. Just he was a tomato can. So with LaFleur, if you bring in someone like Kirk Cousins, who's a veteran, will that work out? If you bring in someone like a Mac Jones, will that be better? Is this a rookie quarterback spot? Do they decide, hey, we'll take a shot on Ty Simpson super early in the draft? That seems kind of high for where they are. Actually, where are they exactly in the draft? Let me actually find that real quick. I think I want to say they're like around 7 or 8 in the draft this year in terms of order. But let me just see real quick. NFL draft order. Good old Tankathon, which we all love. Oh, they're 3rd. My bad. Yeah, you can't take a quarterback 3. So it's not going to be a quarterback at 3. They lost 9 games in a row to finish the season. That is ultimate tank commander stuff there. Shout out to Jacoby Brissett. Shout out to Jonathan Gannon. To lose 9 games in a row to secure the number 3 pick is crazy. But I look at them as a team. So they're not going to draft a guy high unless someone trades up. No one wants to trade up in this draft, I don't think. So they're not a quarterback team in the first round. So it's not going to be a Ty Simpson in the number 3 unless he falls. And I put falls in quotation marks because, to be honest, I don't really understand why he's being talked about as a first-round pick. At least that's what his agent said. His agent said that he got first-round grades, so that's why he's leaving. I don't hate Ty Simpson. I kind of like him. I don't like him as a first-round pick. I like him more kind of like what those guys were going last year, the 3rd-round pick kind of guys, 2nd, 3rd. Like, that makes more sense to me. So maybe they're a team that drafts a guy later in the draft. Maybe it's a Carson back. We'll see if Trinidad Chambliss comes to his senses and realizes that being a 24, 25-year-old quarterback in college probably isn't best for your football future. But maybe it's one of those guys later in the draft. But that'll be, of course, the thing to follow with the Raiders is what ends up happening. Do they end up deciding, hey, we got to figure out what we're going to do with, the Cardinals, what we're going to do with quarterback and with the Kyler Murray situation, how they move on from there. But Mike LaFleur, he is now their new head coach moving forward. Let's keep it moving here. We have all-star announcements. So we have the reserves. These is now official. We got our people. LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, Carlton Towns are among those names. Let's actually get to some of these other guys that were here and actually have the image of it. So let me put that up here so you guys can see for yourself who is going to the All-Star game this year. So let's see if we can get this here. Moving it over one more time. Oh, yeah, it's coming over. It's just going really slow. So these are your reserves for the Eastern Conference and Western Conference All-Stars. So you're going to have, in the East, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Duren, Jalen Johnson, Donovan Mitchell, Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam, and Karl-Anthony Towns. In the West, you have Denny Avdia, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards, Chet Holmgren, LeBron James, and Jamal Murray. So those are the guys. I will quickly, I think I have it here still. I'll show you who I had as my picks for the All-Star game. Because it ended up being pretty close to what this was, but I think we might have not quite gotten there. So these were the guys that I had. So we can see kind of where EJ went wrong here when it comes to who was going to be named an All-Star. And these were, to be clear, these were my picks. It wasn't like I was picking to say, what I predicted. But I'd love to see if I can get close to being right. But these are my Eastern Conference picks. So me and Kendall did this with me. We both got all the starters. So the bench guys. So I had Donovan, I had Jalen Johnson, I had Jalen Duren, I had Scotty Barnes. So I had Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram did not make the All-Star game. Norman Powell and Towns I had. So Pascal Siakam was the only guy that did not make it. As you can see there, he also wasn't on my honorable mentions. I had Franz Wagner, Paolo, and Josh Giddey. Pascal Siakam, we know, is a very good player. And in many ways, I feel like he's making the All-Star game in many ways, in part because of the fact that we know he's a very good player and what he did, to be honest, in last year's postseason. Like, this is a weird one where I kind of feel like he's getting in because while the Pacers are terrible and they're tanking, he's putting up good numbers. And in theory, we know he's a star player because he was able to be a number 2 on the team that was one game away from winning an NBA championship. So, and he also is an NBA champion, by the way. He won a title, obviously. So, I feel like some of this is like, hey, like, the Eastern Conference didn't produce a bunch of huge stars. Like finding 12 guys for the East was way, way, way harder than finding 12 guys for the West. The West, actually, it was hard in the sense that there were so many deserving candidates. With the East, that wasn't the case. In the East, it was like, you got to a good 5, maybe 4, and then it was like, all right. Like, to me, like, Jalen Duren, Jalen Johnson, Donovan Mitchell, and for the most part, I'd say Barnes were kind of like, okay, that's locks. Finding the other guys, I was very happy Norman Powell got in. He was my guy. But finding the other guys was like, and Garvey Towns, like we've talked a ton about, we'll talk about in a second. I mean, there's half the city wants to run him out of town, and he's going to be going to the All-Star game. And it's kind of deserved if you think about the guys that are there. Pascal this year, he's averaging just under 24 points. He's averaging 7 rebounds, just under 7 rebounds. He's averaging 4 assists. He's shooting 48% from the field, 37 from 3. I mean, he's having a Pascal Siakam season. There's nothing wrong with his numbers. And he's played a ton. He's played 47 games, started all 40. They played 49 total. He's played 47. There's nothing wrong with him or how he's played. It's just I tend to support the guys playing for teams that are good. He's a weird case because my thing is it's easy to score a lot of points on a team that is terrible. When the team you're playing is realizes even if they F up the scouting report and they allow you to get off, they can still win. Teams aren't as dialed in to the scouting report when they come into Indiana because they know that it's probably going to be an easy W. So I just, in general, it's not even a Pacers thing. It's just a EJ thing. When it comes to All-Star games, I typically like to reward people on winning teams. So that's why I gave, and now we did this exercise 2 weeks ago. So some things actually changed. Like the Magic started playing some bad basketball. They're right now the 8th seed, and there's been some dissension about maybe their head coach, Jamal Mosley, and Paolo Banchero may not be on the same page, which is not what you want to hear. And to be honest, we've now seen like Joel Embiid kind of enter the chat over the last 2 weeks about maybe should he make the All-Star game despite the games he's missed. He's starting to play really good. And those are probably fair questions, but I did not have Pascal Siakam on my team. He was not on my radar because he's playing on the worst team in the NBA. My thought process was if you're going to put a guy in for numbers, even though he's playing on a terrible team, then why not Michael Porter Jr.? Michael Porter Jr. playing on a team that is just as bad. Both the Pacers and the what's the name and the Nets have 13 games. But Michael Porter Jr. is averaging 25 points. That's more than Pascal Siakam. He's averaging 7 rebounds. That's more than Pascal Siakam. He's shooting about 48%. That's around the same. And he's shooting almost 40% from 3 on almost 10 threes a game. I mean, the offensive numbers for Michael Porter Jr. has been phenomenal. He has an outside shot. He probably won't get there, but he has an outside shot at a 50, 40, 90 season. He's shooting 48% from the field, 39.8 from 3, and 85% from the free throw line. You have to get up his free throws a lot probably to get there, but it's not out of the question that he could have a 50, 40, 90 season. He also could be traded, which may also help him because maybe his volume will come down a little bit. So if you were going to put a guy on a bad team on, I probably would have put MPJ on there, to be honest. But it's going to be Pascal. That's what kind of how I felt about the East. All other guys I'm fine with. Very happy with someone like Jalen Johnson. I think he's been one of the most underrated players in the NBA this season. And he's kind of come up, I won't say out of nowhere. I think if you watched the Hawks last season, it was clear that this guy was on the rise when it came to like his game and how much he improved. And you know, he's one of like he's in some ways I feel like he's kind of like one of the black sheep when it comes to the Duke Blue Devils. Mike Krzyzewski kind of sent some parting shots at him as he was leaving Duke. He kind of shut down his season, I think, if I remember correctly. And Coach K had some not so kind words about him, but I'm sure the Duke Blue Devil team and the Brotherhood, as they call themselves, I'm sure they will be embracing Jalen Johnson now that he is an All-Star. So I'm really happy to see him make it. He's had a great season. The Raptors get one All-Star. I didn't give him two. I put Brandon Ingram in there, but again, this was not finding that last spot wasn't the easiest. So I'm fine with Scottie Barnes being their guy, considering he's a two-way guy. Let's get to the West. So the West side over there, you got Denny Avdia, you got Devin Booker, Durant, Edwards, Holmgren, James, Murray. So I'll give you quickly my list so you can compare it to the guys I had. Also pretty close. I think I also got just one guy off, if I'm not mistaken. So I had Curry, Durant, Sengun, Holmgren, Booker, Murray, Avdia. So the main difference from my list and the list that was there being LeBron James makes it, Denny Avdia does not make it. That to me is a little weird. And to be honest, and again, you see Anthony Edwards as a reserve. Steph Curry ended up being a starter, so that's why Anthony Edwards is there. I had Anthony Edwards as a starter. But otherwise, everything stands pat. This is the lifetime achievement award for LeBron James. That's obvious. To me, he missed the first month of the season. His counting stats are not nearly where they were or where they typically are. He started to play much better of late, so his numbers are respectable. But this is, I think, for LeBron James, I'll look it up really quickly, but I'm almost certain this is probably the lowest point totals he's averaged for his entire career. Probably the same can be said for his assists. I mean, or at least not, maybe for his entire career, maybe since his rookie year, maybe. Probably a better way to put it. I'm pulling on LeBron James stats in a second, but he's averaging this year 21 points, 21.9 points, 6 assists, and about 6 rebounds. He's playing 33 minutes tonight. He's shooting 50% from the field. Those are good numbers. He's shooting about 33% from three-point line. Those aren't good numbers. So for his career, LeBron James, he has not averaged 21 points in a season since his rookie year. This is his lowest point total since 2004. That year he averaged 20.9 points. This year he's averaging 21.9. He, as far as assists, he's averaging 6.6. He's actually averaged less recently, so that isn't so bad. The rebound numbers are pretty low, though. He did 5.8 rebounds. That's the lowest he's averaged also since his rookie year. To me, he's not an all-star. I'm sorry. And now, he's LeBron James. And this is like the ultimate like celebrity event. People call it like, the Black Super Bowl, like kind of jokingly. But in reality, it kind of is in terms of just like the stars it brings out, the entertainers that come out, and it's a show. LeBron James being a part of this show, and instead of Alperen Sengun, is better for business. So I understand why he's here instead of Alperen Sengun. I think Alperen Sengun, for what the Rockets have done this season and what he has brought to the table, I think he deserved to be on the All-Star team. That's how I truly feel. It would have been back by the All-Star games for him. He's improved defensively a ton, and he's a dog. He's one of my favorite guys in the league. He's one of my favorite guys coming up in the draft too. So I'm disappointed he didn't make it. The interesting one though, who he wasn't on my list, but the interesting one is Kawhi Leonard, because if you say okay, Alperen Sengun, he's a young guy. He'll have other opportunities. Is what's the big deal if Alperen Sengun doesn't make this All-Star game? Okay, fine. But it's kind of hard if you're saying, okay, we want an established star to go in instead of LeBron. And I'm not saying at all that that Kawhi Leonard is as famous as LeBron James. But say, okay, established star, champion, a guy like that. I'll be honest, like LeBron and Kawhi's stats, it's not close between those two guys for this year. Not close. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up for you guys so you can see for yourself. But in terms of actual who's had the better season this year, it's 100% Kawhi Leonard. Let me see if I can give you guys his numbers so you guys can see just where they stand right now. But Kawhi Leonard, even though the team, the Clippers, they've been they're very up and down this year. Okay, so here are the numbers. I'm seeing. Hopefully, this will show up on you guys' screen in a second here. So hopefully it'll come up, but I can read you the numbers while that's buffering. So Kawhi's averaging 27 points. LeBron's averaging 21. Kawhi's averaging 6 rebounds. LeBron's averaging 5.8. LeBron's averaging more assists, obviously, 6.6 to 3.6. Kawhi's averaging more steals, 2.0. He's shooting better from 3. He's shooting better at the free throw line. He has a better effective field goal percentage. He has a better box score plus minus. He's just had a much better season. It's like, I don't know what to say. And he's played, surprisingly, stunningly, he's actually played more games than LeBron James. Yeah, I can get to you now. I realize I had that up there. Like, these are the stats here, so you can see for yourself. Again, played more games, more points, more rebounds, more steals, more blocks, better three-point percentage, better free throw percentage, better effective field goal percentage, better box office plus minus. He's just been better. There's no case to be made for LeBron over Kawhi Leonard. If you want to say the Lakers have won, I mean, I think when LeBron came around, I think they've played. I love this one to know what the record has been with LeBron James this year, but I think it's been, and I'll change this off. I don't want you guys to see all that stuff, but I think it's essentially been like a 500 team. I think. I'm just trying to just thinking about it in terms of when he showed up and where the Lakers were when he showed up. Let me see Lakers record with LeBron. Let me just take this real quick. But if you're gonna do well, Kawhi's playing on a team that's been a disappointment, and LeBron's playing on a team that's winning. Okay, look, the record with LeBron James this year was 18-13. It's good. It's a winning record. It's not terrible. But, I mean, is it enough to where you say, that 18-13 record with LeBron where he's playing okay basketball for him was enough to leave off a guy who's averaging 28 points a game for a team that was awful to start? But, okay, it's now 23-25. They're solidly in the play-in. The Lakers are 6th. They're 9th. Did the Lakers need 2 All-Stars? Did the Clippers, definitely given Kawhi and how he's playing, did they only deserve 1? Again, if you're doing the number of All-Stars things, again, the Rockets have a better record, so why not Şengün? So I thought the LeBron choice, from a entertainment standpoint, celebrity standpoint, I'm not going to sit here and say, this was some travesty. It's LeBron James. And it may very well be his last All-Star game. That is also part of the conversation. And that also might be why he's on this team. But if you're asking me who was the most deserving guys to make the team, I can't say LeBron was one of those guys this year. I can't say that in good faith. I think he was. It's not, his numbers are good enough where it's not so egregious that it's like insane that he made it. But he definitely, I think, to me, Kawhi and Şengün, I thought, were picks that made way more sense. Now, what's interesting about this LeBron thing, in terms of his pick, is he's on the team and Kawhi's not. I think Adam Silver was very happy about that. And it's not just for the reasons I mentioned. That it's LeBron James. He's a super celebrity. He brings out. He's a bigger draw. Like, all those reasons make sense for why LeBron being in the spot is going to be good for the league. But remember what happened with Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer and all the stuff that happened with the stories that were being revealed by Pablo Torre about them possibly giving him a no-show job to circumvent the cap to give him more money. And the story has kind of died down now. I guess an investigation by the league is happening. I have no idea where that stands. But it seems like that story has gone away. Well, if there's any way for that story to be brought back front and center during what is kind of like the All-Star Weekend, it kind of ends up being like a little bit like a celebration, like recap of what the NBA season has been so far. There are a lot of folks who have not been paying attention at all to the NBA this year for various different reasons. And now, All-Star Weekend, we're getting to the stretch run for the playoff push, and they'll tune into to the All-Star game or tune into All-Star Weekend, and like a lot of the storytelling of the season has to happen for the broadcast has to happen during that time because a lot of people may not have been watching. I don't think they want to necessarily be like, Kawhi Leonard, what did he get into this year? I mean, yes, on the court he's played very well, and you can talk about that. But his presence there, where he's going to be playing potentially in his home arena, because the All-Star game is being hosted by the Intuit Dome, home of the Los Angeles Clippers. Steve Ballmer hosting the All-Star game as the owner of the Clippers. He's going to be at this thing. I think minimizing that whole situation and minimizing that presence is probably beneficial for the league, and probably why Adam Silver is absolutely not crying tears or shedding any tears that Kawhi Leonard didn't make this thing. In fact, I will bet you, especially because it's the West, and you could get to a lot of names and somehow conspicuously forget Kawhi Leonard. If they come to a situation where they have to fill a spot for an injury, or if they realize they have to fill a spot because they don't have enough world guys or whatever, or enough Americans, how they want to do it, I think they'll conspicuously find a way to keep avoiding putting Kawhi Leonard in here, because I don't think they want anything to do with Pablo Torre and everything he was reporting on being part of what is usually supposed to be a celebration of the NBA season so far and look ahead to the playoffs. I think they want that thing as far away as possible. It's a bad look for the NBA, and I would expect that that definitely could have played a factor into why Kawhi Leonard did not make this team. Because I don't think there's any case, unless you're saying, again, and for the reserves, these are the coaches that are voting. These aren't like even like, this isn't like the fans. Like, why would the coaches care about like what was going on with Kawhi and his other stuff? But it could work and get out, and people could say, hey, listen, you know, it would be better for the league if maybe we do X, Y, and Z, and that's how LeBron gets there. The coaches may feel like, hey, this may be LeBron's last one, I'm going to put him in. That could be it too. But there's no reason for a coach to vote for LeBron or Kawhi Leonard based on what they've done this year. Those guys have played against Kawhi Leonard. They know how dominant he's been. They know what kind of impact he's had this year. So it's completely bizarre to me that he's not on this thing and that he's not going to be on the team. And LeBron James is. But when I think of why, I run immediately to what happened with that thing, with the whole scandal with him getting a sponsorship with a tree planting company, and no trees were planted, no work was done. He did no promo. It's a smoking gun. It looks kind of clear what's been going on, but I to me look at the situation and I'm like, this don't look right. This don't look right, and I think it's probably a good thing for the NBA that Kawhi Leonard is indeed not going to the All-Star game this year. I want to get to a couple of things that happened around this. So, of course, these were all announced as the NBA was ushering in its first edition of Sunday Night Basketball on NBC. So, after the Super Bowl next week, which is also on NBC, they'll start to put together these NBA games where they'll have night games to replace Sunday Night Football. And last night, I think it was a good night. I thought you had some good games, some entertaining action. And it started in Madison Square Garden, and they had their show, their pregame show happened on the floor of Madison Square Garden. And they created a lot more headlines than I expected. Again, I got started earlier in the show, and I said it twice because I had an issue with my show where I did 15 minutes and my mic wasn't on. But I said earlier in the show, which still holds true right now, which is like, this is not a show that typically is like a hot take show or a show that like creates like headlines for like contentious things in any way. But I'll be honest, this situation with Vince Carter and Karl Anthony Towns I found pretty interesting. So we've heard all the reporting about Karl Anthony Towns, right? He has been reportedly unhappy with the Knicks and their pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo that dated back to this past summer, and that he has quote-unquote hard feelings that have stuck with him up until this day. He is an all-star this year, but he is definitely having a down season, and his offensive production has definitely dipped. And there's been a lot of folks who have looked at that and said it's probably because of what happened with the situation with the Giannis Antetokounmpo stuff. They're leading to that as to why Karl Anthony Towns may be struggling this year. So I want to play you this video because Vince Carter, I have no idea what kind of relationship he would have with Karl Anthony Towns, where he would be this animated speaking to him. But this was Vince Carter talking to Karl Anthony Towns prior to the Knicks win last night against the Lakers. And let me play it for you here.
You pointing in there. What's going on?
I said congratulations to you, first of all, and his ability to block out the noise and still become an all-star. And the one thing he said is like, you know what? Thank you. He said, I trusted in God, and God got me. And I was like, yo, that's what it's all about. So the congratulations.
Why you was pointing?
It wasn't giving congratulations. It was giving.
I mean, yeah, Maria Taylor, you're right. Definitely was not giving whatever Vince Carter said was giving. Oh, congratulations on making the All-Star game. And you're blocking out the noise. That's not what I saw. That's not what I saw at all. I saw somebody that looked like they had been PO'd by something that Karl Anthony Towns had been doing, or how he had been approaching his career, how he had been approaching the situation. And he wanted to let it be known that Carl Towns needs to get with the program here and figure out, how he could continue to be a valuable piece to this team and not allow those distractions to get the best of him. I mean, that didn't look like, hey, congratulations on making the All-Star game, buddy. That looked like, hey, get your head out of your ass, buddy. That's what it looked like to me from Vince Carter. And if that's what he did, shout out to Vince. I mean, he's not a former Knick, so he has no reason to root for the Knicks or like the Knicks. Carl Towns didn't play at North Carolina, so there's no North Carolina tie. So I don't know why Vince Carter would need to get after Carl Towns like that. I think it does speak to just, again, we talk about like how the rest of the league views Carl Towns. The fact that Vince was that animated with him, it really does speak to just like the whole league seeing Cat in a way where they're just like, you're talented, you're really good, but there's something missing. There's something up here in your head or something in here in your chest that's not allowing you to be the champion you have the capabilities of being. And I think it frustrates these older players. Like, remember last year during the playoffs, this was Game 5 when the Knicks had beat the Pacers to send the series back to Indiana. Carl Towns had a really good Game 5. And, he'd been battling a knee injury and he'd been battling stuff. He played well. The whole team played well. It was the last stand before they got knocked out of the playoffs next game. But they were doing these interviews kind of on the floor. They were doing interviews, post-game interviews with players, I think almost every game of the series. But they were doing interviews on the floor. This one was with Carl Towns. And Towns was sitting there. And, at one point, Charles Barkley's like, hey, man, what's with the dumb fouls? Like, why do you do this? Like, I watch you play, and you're a great player, then you make these silly, dumb mistakes, and it's really unconscionable and, like, inexplicable. No way to describe it, no way to understand it. And Carl Towns like laughing, yeah, man, I don't know what I'm doing either. But I think they were like kind of serious, like, hey, man, what are you actually doing? Like, you should be not a great player. And like this crap you do with these stupid fouls is not allowing you to reach your potential. And there you got Vince Carter, another former player, but he's not like, again, like, well, I think what we think of when we think of like the old crotchety guy that just hates on all the guys today. Like, you want to say, okay, Charles Barkley hating on another current athlete, what to do? Okay, fine. That's not Vince Carter. Vince Carter is like usually very positive, very optimistic, he's like kind of been known to be a very nice guy. That's not Vince. But there you had Vince Carter just getting after Carl Towns. Carl Towns probably was surprised by that. He's like, "What? Why are you in my face? What are you doing?" But I think it speaks to like he evokes something in these other athletes that I don't think any other NBA player does. I think it's because they look at him and they say he's that tall, he has that much skill, and he's that strong. There's no reason for him not to be a monster. And they've seen what we've seen. I mean, we've seen Carl Towns the season he's had. He's gonna make the All-Star game, and it feels like he's making it by default, really, because his numbers suggest he should. But he's not had a good year at all. And again, when we seen like, yo, what the hell's going on? So really interesting moment last night with Vince Carter getting after Carl Towns a little bit for how he has played this past season. Not at all thrilled with what we've seen from Carl Towns, and he let him know about it. There was another thing that happened during this pregame show. Again, this was a very animated pregame show. So we had the Carl Towns bit, which was kind of weird. We also had the debut of Caitlin Clark, who recently was announced that she would be a contributor for NBC for this upcoming season where they're going to be doing basketball the rest of the way. And we kind of wondered, is this going to be a Michael Jordan deal where she sits down for one interview and they play it for the entire rest of the second half? I was like, I tweeted when they announced that, so she saw MJ get that bag, so that's easy money. But she was there, so this was her first thing, talking NBA, talking ball, talking about her career. So she was there, she was present, it was live, it wasn't taped. So hopefully we'll get more Caitlin Clark commentary moving forward this season. But of course, with her now being on NBC, she is now colleagues with another Indiana sports legend. She, of course, played at Iowa, from Iowa, but she plays with Indiana Fever right now. But she now plays in the same arena that Reggie Miller played in. And she plays for, or actually, yeah, it is. I was like, is it the same arena? But yes, it is. I had to check myself there for questions for a second. But yeah, they played the same arena. Different name. It was like Conseco Fieldhouse when Reggie Miller was playing there, but same arena. And they play in the same arena, and they're part of the same community of the Indiana basketball community. So it was kind of a cool moment to see Reggie Miller up there with Caitlin Clark. And it would have remained cool had Reggie Miller not been asked to give a comparison to Caitlin Clark in terms of who he reminds her of when he watches her play. And I said this earlier in the show. I don't remember if it was actually recorded or you heard it because my mic was off for the first 15 minutes. But I'll say it here again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or you don't know what he said, I think I can give you 200 guesses and you wouldn't get it. And 200 may be also conservative. I may be able to give you like maybe 300 guesses I don't think you'd get. Who Reggie Miller compared Caitlin Clark to. When he watches Caitlin Clark play, who does she remind him of? Again, we'll go to the videotape. So hear Reggie's response and also look at Caitlin Clark's face when she hears his response.
I'm actually curious too. I know you guys have seen Caitlin play. She's a one of ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Peyton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle the basketball. He makes big shots when the shot clock's running down, a lot like this young lady right here. Isn't afraid of the big moment.
Well, what? Did you say Caitlin Clark? Peyton Pritchard? Peyton Pritchard. Of all the guys, Taylor gave Reggie Miller, Maria Taylor, shout out to Maria Taylor, gave Reggie Miller the entire history of the NBA that he could have given. The entire history of the NBA. Or current guys that Caitlin Clark reminds him of. And the best he could give was Peyton Pritchard. And I'm sorry, Peyton Pritchard. You're a good player. The Knicks will probably see you in the playoffs. I don't want any smoke. I don't want you getting excited and saying, "Oh, let me show these guys that I'm him," because he is a good scorer. He is a good guard. He's a good player. But I mean, Caitlin Clark is considered a generational talent, someone who has revolutionized women's basketball, and I say that, and I think it's accurate. I know there's always arguments about us giving Caitlin Clark too much flowers or not enough flowers, and I think there are aspects of both sides that make sense in a lot of these debates. I'm not interested in any of those debates. I think it's very obvious to say, yes, she has revolutionized the game. And yes, she is a generational talent. Those are, I think, things that can't be argued. And the best Reggie does is Peyton Pritchard. See, this is the problem. This is the problem. I actually had this conversation on, I think it was on New York Post Sports. I think it was, because I always forget what was off camera, what was on camera. So whenever I do that, I kind of get wary of going down this route. I think this was on camera. If it wasn't, apologies to my guy, Dexter Henry, a good friend of mine. He's, of course, a reporter, host on New York Post Sports for all their digital content. But we're having a conversation about how, like, why is it that people, when they're comparing, yeah, it definitely was on camera. Like, when you're comparing certain people, you want to compare them to, like, someone that either looks like them or even just someone who is of the same national origin or ethnicity. This, to me, is your typical, I got a white player I'm talking about, let me compare him to another white player. Because there's no explanation otherwise. I can't think of another explanation. Like, is Peyton Pritchard a little guy that can shoot from deep? Yeah, okay, in theory, yes, he is. Peyton Pritchard, I don't know his average off the top of my head. I can't imagine he's averaging 20 points a game. And if he is, God bless him. But I would assume he's averaging probably 17, 18 points. He's been like a six-man type player for the Celtics. He really kind of didn't come into his own as a full rotation guy even, really until last season when he really was entrenched. There were times he was in and out of the rotation with the Celtics. Peyton Pritchard's averaging, I was right, 16.8 points. Caitlin Clark revolutionizing women's basketball. I mean, Peyton Pritchard, again, is not disrespect to him, but of all the people you can name, you cannot convince me this is not Reggie Miller comparing Caitlin Clark to Peyton Pritchard purely because these are two small white guards. You cannot convince me. And by the way, Caitlin Clark also not that small. Like, by WNBA standards for a point guard, she's not a little person either. So like Pritchard as well, like he can assist the ball, but like he's also, I kind of think, more of a scorer than like an actual like floor general. Caitlin Clark like leads the league in assists every year. Like I couldn't believe that was a comparison of all the people he could have named. Steph Curry, John Stockton, Damian Lillard. Like, I mean, like, and I cut the video short, but then Melo, you know, he got to respond, and he was like, I'll go Luka Doncic. And I said, yeah, that's a good one. A volume shooter, throws a ton of assists, can shoot the ball from anywhere on the floor. She's probably a better shooter, more accurate shooter than Luka Doncic is. But I was like, yeah, I get that. Like, an absolute artist with the ball. Because what's the most underrated about Caitlin Clark's game is she is a wizard when it comes to passing. She's an excellent passer. So that part I understood. I was like, okay, Melo, yep, I agree. Totally makes sense. Actually, it's a comparison. Now, yes, it is another white player, which, again, I think happens too often and is why Melo thought Luka Doncic. But at least it's a star. At least it's another generational talent. At least it's somebody you look at and say, oh, yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, that makes sense for you to compare someone like, you know, Caitlin Clark to one of the best players in the NBA. That's an applicable comparison. To compare Caitlin Clark to somebody who, I mean, is Peyton Pritchard top 100? I mean, in theory, he might be this year, maybe, because he had a good year. But a guy who's like a fringe top 100 guy, I got to isolate this video because somebody showed the video of Caitlin Clark's face when Reggie Miller said Peyton Pritchard, and it's unreal. Her reaction, because I think, you know, you saw the full video, which you could have seen, and I told you guys to watch the reaction, but I want you guys also to watch this one more time. And this is like a brick center, which always is like trolling people with their things. I want you guys to watch this video and watch Caitlin Clark's reaction. Hopefully this video will play and everything. Yeah, so you can't hear it, but she's like, "Look at that face! Look at that! Look at that face! She's like, are you serious? Are you serious right now? That's the best you can give for me is, are you serious? I mean, like, what, like, and the video's not playing on actual X probably because it doesn't allow me to play. So you'd have to, so actually, let me play it actually from the actual full video so you guys can see for yourself. But again, one more time, this was last night. I'm going to pause it on Caitlin's face. Like, her face there, she's actually, from the stream I see, she's smiling. The one I see, she's scowling. I'm going to pause it so you can see her face when she is revealed that Reggie Miller thinks she's the next Peyton.
I'm actually curious, too. I know you guys have seen Caitlin play. She's a one-of-ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Peyton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle
Peyton Pritchard, Reggie Miller, that's the best you could have given us? Come on, bro. We got to stop. This should be the ultimate. We're ending all black on black, white on white, European on European, Asian on Asian comparisons for athletes. We got to, this has to be the end. We should come up with a thing where we have to find someone of a different ethnicity or nationality to compare these other athletes to when we do this. Because this was the worst example of this. There's no way if Peyton Pritchard was a black point guard that he would have been compared to Caitlin Clark. No shot. No shot. You cannot tell me that is not the reason why he did this. You can't. Unbelievable to me. Completely unbelievable. But shout out to Caitlin Clark. She did a great job. Reggie Miller, I don't want to shout out. I can't say he did a great job. Because not only was that that play ridiculous, it also was a play during the game. LeBron had, to be fair, a sick alley-oop. And they have a spy cam now. They're calling a spy cam on the announcers during the game, which TNT, I guess, they did for the March Madness. But I guess they never really did during the during like the NBA season. Because we had like that famous Kevin Harlan game winner by, I forgot what team it was, but where he was like telling like Stan Van Gundy, the other guy, like not to talk while he was while he was doing his thing, which was awesome to see, and it was just really cool. I've never seen like an NBA broadcast do that with TNT, so I don't think they've done it for the NBA, but they did for college. They had a spy cam on Mike Tirico, Jamal Crawford, and Reggie Miller calling the game. LeBron catches this, again, to be fair, a sick alley-oop. Reggie Miller is out of his seat, leaning over Jamal Crawford, and then hitting Mike Tirico, like going crazy, smiling and celebrating. It's like he was rooting for the Lakers, which, to be honest, he is. Whenever Reggie Miller is calling Knicks games, again, it really bothers Knicks fans. Like, I saw Knicks fans and people I respect who follow Knicks who were just like, I need to find a way to mute Reggie Miller. Like, this is awful. I come into these games, like, and maybe this is a level of copyism. I understand it. I could be coping with this because it is crazy. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Reggie Miller is the heel announcer calling games, just like in wrestling. So when you watched like Bobby the Brain Heenan when you were growing up, or you watched Jerry the King Lawler growing up, or you watched JBL, whatever your era is of professional wrestling, like that announcer who clearly was always rooting for the bad guy or rooting against the good guys, like that's how I view sporting, like Knicks games on national TV that are called by Reggie Miller. I'm like, all right, he's a heel announcer. And that, there are times where I'm like, shut up, Reggie, or like whatever, but I actually don't get mad about it. I'm just like, it's just like, I know that's part of the broadcast at this point. Do I think it's a good product in general for him to be that way? No. I do think there are people who are taking this very seriously, and they don't want the announcer openly cheering for LeBron James alley-oops against the Knicks. Like, it does get to a point. And the video was that one I did not download. And apologies to NBC if they want to come after me for playing their videos. I hope they don't come after me. But, like, there was a video where the guy who was there, like, after the dunk happens, he's sitting behind Reggie Miller. So you see this podcast. So Reggie Miller's going crazy. He's like, again, he's acting like he's a fan of the Lakers and of LeBron James. And there's a guy sitting behind Reggie Miller. Shout out to that guy. That guy's a true Knicks fan. Because you see the people that be sitting front row, sitting second row, like, these folks are folks that some of them may have been given tickets. Some of them may not even be Knicks fans or basketball fans. They just showing up. Some of them might even be Laker fans, considering this is LeBron James, this is the Lakers. There are a lot of Laker fans in the building anytime they come to Madison Square Garden. But this is a Knicks fan who probably paid $4,000 or $5,000 to sit this close and watch Reggie Miller showing his ass, jumping up, acting crazy like he's at Rucker Park for LeBron James alley-oop. He's supposed to be an impartial announcer, and this guy looking at him like, man, shut the F up. Like, you actually see, you can actually read his lips, and you see him looking at him like, what are you doing? Just sit down. And I was like, man, shout out to that guy. I hope that guy gets on a podcast or gets on somewhere. Somebody interviews him, because that was a good moment. But Reggie Miller had a couple of interesting moments last night. And I did see folks on social media being like, the coverage of the NBA is a lot better with NBC and Amazon, but we still have Reggie. It feels like, for me, like how I feel about Tony Romo now, where I've said, hey, America, we got to do something about Tony Romo. Like, we're a very divided country. I think we all could agree we've had enough of Tony Romo. Something has to be done about Tony Romo, these NFL broadcasts, whether they tell him to change the way he broadcasts, or there's a change that happens. Something needs to be done because it's now bothering everybody. Reggie Miller, it appears, is approaching that level for other people. And again, I go back to kind of what I said earlier about kind of criticizing the inside the NBA team a little bit, and them kind of not understanding their role, not understanding the moment, not reading the room well, not maybe being as read up or not being as knowledgeable about what's actually happening in the game. For Reggie Miller to say that Caitlin Clark reminds him of Peyton Pritchard a week after he also said Derrick Rose had 6 to 8 years where he was as good as LeBron James, again, speaks to, like, you're an expert on basketball because you played at the ultimate level. But, like, how close are you actually following this? And are you actually, like, keeping up with, like, the history of the game and keeping up with the storylines? Like, do you not see how bizarre it is to say that Derrick Rose had 6 to 8 years where he was comparable to LeBron James? Or how weird it is to say that if you're comparing Caitlin Clark to a basketball player currently or in the history of the NBA, the best you can give me is Peyton Pritchard. But I think he comes from the inside the NBA TNT cloth where it's more entertainment than like real like basketball knowledge and conversation. And it feels like watching what NBC has become, I think for a lot of folks, and I think they're fair. I think they're fair in their assessment. Is it almost feels like he's like a fish out of water. Jamal Crawford I thought was great last night. Mike Tirico's always great. He's great at everything he does. And then Reggie is jumping up and down. He's going crazy over LeBron. He's cheering for LeBron James dunk, which Mike Tirico probably hated. Because Tirico mentioned how much he hates what it's become when he feels like partial coverage of sports. He hates when people who are calling games or are anchoring shows show that they're a fan of a team or a fan of a player. And that's an argument to be had about whether or not like that role has shifted or that role has evolved with the way sports has evolved, the way media has evolved. It's a very fair, interesting, I think, debate. I'll be honest. But I do look at the situations and how they view it, and I think it is fair to ask those questions about, like, is it a situation where is Reggie Miller, like, is this what we need? Is this what we want? Is this best for the league? I find it funny. I just, to me, it's just like, all right, bro, like, if this is what's happening, I'm going to, like, the Knicks play a lot of national TV games, so it's not, you can't avoid them, and, like, he will be calling, if they play East Conference Finals, he's calling every game, right? Like, there are times where you just can't avoid it. Like, there is no MSG that can turn into a local broadcast, or if you're any other team. He's not, the Knicks are the only team he has real beef with, but, like, some team people just don't like his call. They just think that he's just not that good. And there are times where you can't avoid watching, you got to watch the national broadcast. You can't turn to anything else. There are some NBC games that are exclusive back in the day, or last year. Some TNT games that are exclusive. There is no simulcast where I can go to my local broadcast to see what they're doing. So like, I don't really. So I think that it's a good question about whether or not, like, hey, like, is this broadcast style, does this work? I think he's okay. I don't think he's as bad as people think he is. I think the rooting for, like, the Knicks to lose is, like, kind of insane. But once you kind of get over the absurdity of it and, like, you just play the course, I'm like, you know what? This is different than most other broadcasts. So, like, I'm just going to play with this. Okay, fine. But I think there are people who won't like that. But I think a lot of the reasons why people don't like that, I think, is because it stems from an era of NBA coverage that at one time I think was the gold standard, which was NBA on TNT. That I do think that we've kind of moved past that way of covering the game. The bias, the lack of understanding, the lack of reading in a room, like all that stuff. I think we've moved past it overall. There are people who will always love that, and they exist. But I saw Charles Barkley. I didn't make a broadcasting segment, but just I'm thinking about the things I've thought about this and heard about this. I remember Charles Barkley, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, he made a comment that he was really upset that it felt like ESPN was like kind of burying them. Like they hired them to do the pregame show and the postgame show and Inside the NBA, but that we hadn't really seen much of them outside of that. Like they've done those shows, and they really haven't made many appearances on other shows. It almost also seems like ESPN doesn't really promote the fact that Inside the NBA is on there, which I think he's right about. Like, I don't know if they're burying him on purpose, but it does feel like ESPN and their embrace of Inside the NBA has not been as, if like full-throated is the best word I can think of. Apologies, I know that sounds weird to people, but it hasn't been that full-throated support that people I think would have really expected. I don't know if that's because it's this weird deal with TNT where, like, it's produced by the same people and ESPN just licenses it. I don't know if that's part of this, where they're like, hey, like, we don't really know those guys. We're not working with anybody there. They just kind of do the show and then we just air it. I don't know if that's part of, like, the reason why they're not, like, embracing it the way they are. We thought they would. But, like, yeah, they for their first week or whatever, which I said, on Maggie and Perlow show when they did it, I thought their first few shows were excellent. I actually thought that they did kind of like shift away so much from the I'm going to criticize all these guys and talk about all these guys I hate kind of commentary. And they were just funny. Which my thing is, if you want to just be funny, I'm fine with that too. Like, I don't need you to be the most, like, up-to-date on everything and just giving me breakdowns on this, like, Hornets action thing. I don't necessarily need that. I love it. I'm a basketball junkie. I'll take it. But I don't need that from any show. But you can't not give me that and then also like not know what's happening on just a regular basis and then also just crap on the product all the time. You can't do that. If you're gonna crap on the product all the time, at least tell me why the product stinks. Not like you just or don't want to see the Wizards play tonight. Like I don't. That's not helpful. Or this player is not as good as I was back in the day. Like we don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. So that was my issue with them. But it has been weird. Like they've been doing their shows normally. They've been doing a pregame show and a postgame show. But to be honest, I'm starting to feel like what I was saying. I was saying this at the time. I think America was ready. Like if the show didn't come back, and I don't want anybody to lose their jobs in this industry. I am someone who just lost their job in the industry. So I'm not someone clamoring for that to happen. I'm just being like, just as an observer, as a fan. Charles put it a lot on ESPN in terms of the lack of buzz for inside the NBA this year, which is part of it. I think it's definitely it's true. I don't know why ESPN hasn't promoted them more. I can get into my criticism of ESPN, but I'll leave that for another day and maybe a time when I'm employed, right? But beyond even just that, it feels like to me though, like they also aren't, like, it doesn't feel like people have missed them really. Like they're around and they're there, and I think to be clear, like the NBA regular season is a slog, and it's tough to get through, and I do wonder if it will take time for people to once we get to playoff time and inside the NBA is on every day. I hope they're on every day. I don't know if the schedule's going to change. I know with TNT, they were on almost every day, it seemed like. It was like they did shows like 4 or 5 days a week. It's an ESPN deal now, so I don't know if that's going to change where like they won't be on as much as they were in the playoffs. But let's assume they are. They're on almost every day. They're on 4 to 5 days a week during the playoffs. I think maybe then they'll start to get those headlines and those buzz. But I think people are like, yeah, they've been kind of quiet. I'm like, they've been doing what they normally do. They've been doing the same bits. They've been doing the stuff. I think that people were outraged when we learned that TNT was going away with the NBA, and people, whenever something's going away, that's like the initial surge of like, no, don't do this. We gotta bring this back. Look at all these people who love us, and that is not fake, but I do think that when you get to like the nitty gritty of then like actually showing, okay, how much sport do you actually have now that you're back, now that you're doing your thing? And then you say, hey, what's the last Charles Barkley thing of note that you remember him saying? Or Kenny Smith or Shaquille O'Neal? They just haven't had the impact that they usually have. And I don't know if it's only ESPN's fault, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if it's only ESPN's fault. I don't know if it's their fault. It might just be where basketball fans are right now. It might be where NBA fans are right now. Basketball, like most sports, unlike football, I think is kind of becoming more of a niche sport. So if you're actually locking into NBA content throughout the season, again, what they're providing, if they're not going to be super funny, I don't know if the people who are locking in for an NBA season is going to be locked into what they're saying. Now, again, postseason may be different. That'll be the bigger sign. If postseason goes by and they're kind of going like a whisper in the wind, then I'll say, okay, this maybe really is a sign that maybe we have moved on from them. But where they are right now, it's too early to tell. But I think it is interesting to note. Let's shift gears here real quickly before we get out of here, man. I want to thank you guys for checking out this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. This is a bizarre episode because I started the first 15 minutes and there was no sound. So apologies to that. This is a self-run business. So the one thing about it is I have no one else to blame. I can't put it on somebody else. I can't put it on some intern. This is a one-man band show here. But what comes with if there's a user error issue, there's no one else to cite that there's a user error issue except for me. But shout out to people who are in the chat. Shows that I do have viewers and listeners, which is awesome, who are able to say, hey, it's been like 10 minutes, I don't hear anything. I'm like, oh, chat. That was actually almost my first curse. I said chat, which is not what I meant to say. But in my head, I said, oh, bleep. That's not good. And then realized why. So there's always like a little switch I got to hit. Didn't hit the switch, and therefore there was no sound. But this is technically we should be at 1 hour 40 minute mark. This is technically around 1 hour and 25 minutes of a show. Thank you guys for checking it out so far. This is day 16. Of course, you can catch all of our shows, 40 Days and 40 Nights, on the New Generation Media YouTube channel where we're streaming live. New Generation Media. Shout out to the folks in the YouTube chat. I'm pulling up some comments in a second in the YouTube chat, but shout out to the folks in the chat. New Generation Media, where you'll find us there. Also on X, I'm streaming live, EJ_Stewart, and also on Instagram, Action EJ. And like every 40 days or 40 nights episode, you can catch all of these shows on our audio podcast channel. So if you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts, just search New Generation Podcast Network, and you can get every episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights. We have some comments in the comment section, so I want to make sure I get to them. I saw my guy Channing Biebling said, "I just got here just in time. That was when I learned that I had no sound on." Yep, indeed, I had no sound, and thanks to you guys in the chat, you were able to help me out. So he turned on. He came in just as the sound was on, so he missed nothing. So folks, however many folks was there prior, apologies for those who did not hear anything. We talked a lot about the Raiders earlier. The Raiders hiring a new head coach, soon to be, which is going to be Klint Kubiak. So we have Bob Custer, who's in Vegas, so this is the right person you want to hear from. Said, had the Raiders made another substandard hire, both Al and his son Mo have made a ton of boring hires, from coach to GM to draft choices. Do I think this is a substandard hire? No, I think this is a good one. I'm all in on the Klint Kubiak hire. I know in most professions we clown and do not like nepotism. It seems like with football coaches, we're okay with it. And in most seasons, because it mostly goes fine. There are obviously some examples where guys are terrible, but most of the time they're pretty good. The brother of a guy or son of a guy, most of the time they're fine. So I think Klint Kubiak's a really good hire. Klint Kubiak went to a team that we didn't come into this year expecting the Seahawks to be some offensive juggernaut, but they became one of the best offensive teams in the NFL. And he took over a team that lost DK Metcalf, and he was able to make Jackson Smith and Jigba into arguably the best receiver in the NFL. The running game with Kenneth Walker took a major step. They were third in rushing this year. They were third in points scored against Sam Darnold. Could he have the same kind of success not having Kevin O'Connell call the plays, someone who's also seen as the lead play caller? He goes to a new team, new environment, new coaching staff, new offensive coordinator, and he still has another good season. So I think this is a really good hire. You need someone to help with the development of not just Fernando Mendoza, who's going to come in this year, but also you're going to need someone to help the development of Ashton Jeanty, who in his first year really was not much to see there in Vegas in terms of Ashton Jeanty's first year. A bit of a disappointment. And again, if you saw Kenneth Walker and how he was running the rock just last week against the Rams, I would feel very hopeful, very optimistic about maybe him being able to unlock the Raiders' running game. Now, a lot of this is going to come down to what you're mentioning beyond the coach or even the quarterback or the running back, right? You're mentioning the Davis family. You're mentioning the GM situation, bad draft choices. That is where this is going to hinge on. Klint Kubiak can only do so much with what he is given. There's not much there with the Raiders. There's Brock Bowers. There's the hope of what Ashton Jeanty can be. I don't know, I'm talking about offense. And then, of course, there's Max Crosby. And we'll see if he's still on the team. But based on what's actually there on offense, that's kind of it. Bowers and the hope of whatever you think Jeanty can be. So they're going to have to do a lot when it comes to how they restructure this team and how they rebuild this team. It's going to obviously start with the draft. They also got to make some much better free agent signings and trades in this offseason than they've had. I mean, the Christian Wilkins thing could not have gone worse. Jacoby Myers could not have gone worse. They made some moves that were crippling to them in terms of whether it was attitude, whether it was want to be there or production. They've been miserable when it comes to free agent signings over there. So they're going to have to shuffle the deck again. They're going to have to revamp the offensive line probably a little bit. They're definitely going to need to get way better skill players, so they can't be Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty in the prayer, which right now is what they have. So if this is going to work out in Las Vegas, Kubiak's good. I think he's the right guy to maybe turn it around. It's going to come down to a lot more than just Ashton Jeanty and Kubiak and Fernando Mendoza, the front office, which I point to Spytech and, of course, Tom Brady. Can they pick the right guys to put around these guys? It's going to be the big question. Also, obviously we're just talking about Caitlin Clark as well. The bizarre comment from Reggie Miller that he reminded her of all the people in the history of the NBA that you could think of, to do a male to female comparison. Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard of the Boston Celtics. He's a first-time starter this year, but a long-time backup. And a guy who I think was a fringe first-round pick also, not a top pick either. Averaging 16 points this year. Good player. No need to disrespect Peyton Pritchard. But the fact that he was even brought up in talking about Caitlin Clark tells you this was seen very off base. And I played this down. And Caitlin Clark, she could not hide the look on her face. She could not hide the disappointment that Reggie Miller, who she's a younger player, so I don't know if she's looking up to Reggie Miller, but she probably knows of Reggie Miller. He's obviously a fellow great shooter, so when she thinks about the great shooter, she probably thinks about Reggie Miller. So he may be, I would say he's a hero, but like someone she probably like admires for sure. Now she's an Indiana athlete, so certainly from that respect, you definitely have to say she admires Reggie Miller. So she has this grin on her face, looking at Reggie Miller glowingly, being like, ooh, who is he going to compare me to of all the guys that have ever played in the NBA? And when he says Peyton Pritchard, that smile turns into an immediate scowl that she then realized she has to change. So she has this like blank look on her face, but she cannot fake a smile at that point. She can't. Because she realized she's got compared to essentially a guy who was a sixth man last year. And she's someone who, again, has revolutionized the sport and is a generational talent. So Bob Custer also in the chat saying, EJ, yes, even the NBA should be thrilled at Caitlin Clark's success. Is it just old school jealousy? What do you think in terms of what's been going on? In terms of, like I mentioned earlier, that like there's a lot of, I mentioned she's a generational talent, and I mentioned that she's, someone that has revolutionized the sport. And with that comes a lot of opinions. Like a lot of people think that you're giving them too many flowers. Some people say you're not giving enough flowers if you say that. And I mentioned earlier that I think there are definitely points made on both sides that I think are fair. There are times where I think that the team, the coverage Caitlin Clark has become like erasure of other great athletes in the WNBA. There are also times where it seems like when it's just clear as day, Caitlin Clark is a special player and a special talent and a special individual, that to even say that becomes like this controversial thing that it should not. And I don't mean to play both sides of this because I'm not meaning to. I just think that's the reality. That's what's happened. So like I don't think this Reggie Miller comments came across as jealousy. Like there's an idea that like sometimes like is there a way that's like a way to disrespect like a player that's a young player that's coming up. Like I'm not going to compare him to Stephen Curry. I'm going to compare him to Peyton Pritchard. I don't think that was his intention. I just think Reggie Miller I think he's a kind of a oddball commentator. I think that's more of what it is than anything personal. The NBA, I agree, definitely. Also, it definitely helps the NBA because the NBA owns the WNBA. It definitely helps them that Caitlin Clark is successful, though they're in now a contentious CBA negotiation, and a lot of negotiation is in part because of the money and eyeballs that Caitlin Clark brought. So the WNBA players are trying to strike while the iron is hot and get a good, fair deal for them for the growth that the league has had, especially with Caitlin Clark helping with that. Not solely, but helping with that for sure. So there's that aspect too, where the NBA's got to pay up in order to keep the league going if they figure this out. But I don't think that with the NBA or with Reggie that it was old school jealousy. I think he's just an oddball commentator. I think this is the kind of thing he says, this kind of thing he does, and it was bizarre. I could not believe that was a name he'd come up with. But it kind of reminded me. I remember. I don't know at what point this was during Steph Curry's like ascent into being like an all-time great player, but I want to say maybe it was like this might have been around the time they won a title, or maybe like a little shortly after. And he was mentioned, and Phil Jackson, who, if you're a Lakers fan or a Bulls fan, you're like, oh, Phil Jackson, yes, the great Phil Jackson. If you're a Knicks fan, you're like, oh gosh. So when he was. I don't know if he was running the Knicks yet or if this was before he started running the Knicks. Because he was a guy who was on social media. He liked to send slick shots at people and talk about the game of basketball. Because he definitely was not liking the way the game was going. Where it was becoming more of an open court, 3-point shooting kind of game. And I forgot exactly what sparked the conversation. But he had been talking about the Warriors a bunch. Like he did like a... They lost the game, and he like kind of dissed them. He's like, something going goink during a playoff. I think maybe they got eliminated or whatever because they weren't shooting the ball. Well, I assume this probably was when LeBron eliminated them. But like to say that, you can't just rely on threes or whatever. But Phil Jackson at one point, I remember, they were talking about like Steph Curry and how great he was, or there was a conversation on the internet. And he was like, oh, no, like, don't get me wrong. Like, Steph Curry is a great player. I mean, he definitely reminds me of a guy that also we had trouble with when I was coaching. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Now, again, I want to be clear. I don't at all want to disrespect Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, formerly Chris Jackson. One of the best, maybe the best college freshman to ever play college basketball. And one of the best college basketball players to ever play college basketball. And a very good pro. It's not a disrespect to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And, of course, he was blackballed by the NBA for praying during the national anthem and not taking part in the national anthem. And that sucked. So I got a lot of love for Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. But Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, compare him to Steph Curry. This was now I'm seeing it was in 2016. This is when Ian Begley was at ESPN still. Shout out to Ian Begley. So yes, he was president of the Knicks still. I was like, was he president of the Knicks? Yeah, of course he was. This was when he was the most embarrassing for the Knicks situation. People were talking about like the Warriors and comparisons, and he had said, people I guess were saying, oh, well, we never seen anything like Steph Curry. And he said, this is a tweet. In fact, let me see if I can post it so you can see it for yourself. Because I don't even want to. I want you to see for yourself how ridiculous this is. For those that are on the stream. For those who are listening on the podcast, apologies for the delay. But I'm going to wait for that to load and see. I'll put it up here, though. Let's see. Is it sharing? Nope. Oh, hopefully soon. Let's see. There you go. They've never seen anything like Steph Curry. Remind you of Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who had a short but brilliant run in the NBA. Everybody's like, what? So then he added another tweet later, the next morning, because people were like, what are you talking about? Like, so this is 2016 Steph Curry. So they've already won a title. And now this is the next year where now they're challenging the Bulls for 73 wins. And Phil Jackson says, oh, you think you've never seen someone like Steph Curry before? Don't you guys remember Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf? And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Then he says, how does commenting on, first of all, he just says Rauf, which is not his name. His name is Abdul-Rauf, and Phil seemed totally fine in terms of the characters. So if you want to give him love, actually tweet out his whole name. But he says, how does commenting on Rauf mean I'm comparing him to Curry? Remind, yes. Quick release, crossover, yep. MVP, nope. Get a grip. Exclamation point. Now Phil was annoyed. Phil got annoyed by the people that were like, how are you comparing one of the greatest runs we've seen from an individual talent at the point guard position to a guy who's never made an All-Star game? And then he got mad. But, like, he's mad at people saying, how does me commenting on Rauf mean I'm comparing him to Steph Curry? When the first tweet says, never seen anything like S. Curry, reminds you of Chris Jackson, Mahmoud. He literally is saying that he's comparing them. And then he got mad. So this maniac was running the New York Knicks. So for folks who talk about why are Knicks fans a certain way, why are they so jaded, because I had to deal with BS like this. This man was actually running the New York Knicks, tweeting about whether or not Steph Curry reminded him of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and then getting mad when people didn't like his takes. The president of the Knicks was giving takes on Twitter. This speaks to, again, how dark things were for the Knicks organization at that time. So I had to put that aside in terms of the last time this was a comparison for me, for when somebody mentioned a comparison for an all-time generational guard and they brought up somebody that made no sense. Phil Jackson comparing Steph Curry to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf as the Warriors are about to win 73 games and Steph Curry is breaking every three-point record known to man. Very much similar, in my opinion, to the fact that you had, and it fits the thing I was saying, Clayton Clark and what's the name, and Peyton Pritchard, and it fits the same thing I just said. Again, he just compared some other short, light-skinned dude to Steph Curry. It's exactly what I'm talking about. We do this thing in sports, and it drives me crazy. People who kind of look alike or have similar skin complexion or come from the same country, we're just going to compare them, even though there's absolutely no reason to compare them in terms of their talent or terms of their success or terms of their accolades. But we do it because we're like, oh, I got to find somebody who kind of looks like him. Hey, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, right? And again, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was nice. I'm not dissing Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. But this is Stephen Curry we're talking about. And this is a guy who at that time was an MVP, about to win his second one in a row. And that's the best that Phil Jackson could have gave us. I don't know, man. I don't know. But wow. So that's all I can say is wow. Real quickly, man, before we get out of here, and thank you for rocking me again for this show. Kendrick Lamar was a big winner at the Grammys. Last night the Grammys took place in LA. Kendrick Lamar set a record where he surpassed Jay-Z for the most Grammys ever by a hip-hop artist. Kendrick Lamar won for Best Rap Album. He also won for Best Rap Song. And he also had other various different wins throughout the night. It's kind of funny now, and if there's anything that Drake can hold in this Kendrick Lamar beef that at least stuck with him a little bit, is the line from not Meet the Grams. That's about Drake. From I don't know why I can't remember this all now. Family Matters. Kendrick just opened his mouth. Someone go ham a Grammy right now, which is a funny line. Is a good line. One of the good shots Drake got during that thing. Ironically, for both of those guys, some of the not so biting lines are actually some of the more funnier lines. Some of my favorite lines from the rap beef. But Kendrick Lamar had another great night. The Grammys seem to love Kendrick Lamar. He's racked up again. I believe now, if I'm not mistaken, 26 Grammys or 29 Grammys. He's now the most decorated hip hop act ever when it comes to Grammy wins. He has now 26. Jay-Z had 25, and Kanye West had 24. So shout out to Kendrick Lamar. Obviously, a phenomenal album. GNX. I'll be fair and post what I posted on social media. I have a heart. It's such a good album. If it wins, fine. I do feel like the Clips album was the best rap album of the year. And they did a lot of promo to try to push the narrative and push their thing. They hope to win. And it was a really tough competition. I mean, Tyler's album was really good. It was not going to be, the category was a dogfight. This was, I know it's kind of annoying when people say, oh, there was nothing going on in hip hop this past year. I was like, no, this was a good year in hip hop. There were a lot of great albums this year. But I looked at the Clips album. That felt, it obviously is not as big as GNX because it's Kendrick Lamar. But when I just think of what makes rap albums great, that is the album I point to from not just this past year, but in recent years, where I say, if you want to know what is top tier rap music that would remind you of any era, or rather not even remind you of any era, more like what is top tier rap music that shows where rap has gone from where it began. If I had to play something saying rap, if you started with stuff from the 80s, if you started with Grandmaster Fast and the Furious 5, right? And I said, okay, or Houdini. And then it was 2026, okay, show me elite rap music from today and show me how it has evolved from where it was. I would show you Let God Sort Them Out. That's what I would do. I think there's that great an album. I think it's that classic. And I'm talking about albums that are current, right? I'm not saying good. I could say Good Kid, Mad City, right? I could say from years ago. I'm talking about just current albums that are in rotation for the last year or year plus. I would point to, without question, the Clips album. So I would have voted for the Clips album. I think Clips album should have won. But, I mean, Kendrick Lamar just did a tour where he was touring the world in stadiums with SZA. He's a megastar. So, and GNX is a great album. It's not like it's a whack album. It's not like, I don't mean to disrespect Macklemore, but I guess it will come across as disrespect. When the Heist won over Good Kid, Mad City, that was ridiculous. The Heist wasn't terrible, but as an album, it had great singles. It had two amazing singles. Thrift Shop, the amazing single. Can't Hold Us is a smash hit. It's like a generational type hit. So it's not about the Macklemore or even the whole his run that he had, that year he had with him and Ryan Lewis. But that album, as a whole project, you think that was better than Good Kid, Mad City? It was ridiculous, which is why he famously had to say, hey, I told Kendrick, hey, I robbed you, man, and it shouldn't have gone to me. This is not that. GNX was great. But still, I would have went with Clips. So the whole irony of Kendrick just opened his mouth, someone go hand him a Grammy right now, does feel like kind of fits a little bit. But even if he didn't get that win, he still would at least tied Jay-Z. But it's incredible that the run again this guy has been on, and we're gonna have more conversations about where K-Dot stands when it comes to the all-time greats when it comes to hip hop. He's starting to get into that Jay-Z level to me, where now, let me be clear about this. I think today it is pretty well received. If someone says Jay-Z's the greatest rapper of all time, you won't get a ton of pushback. You'll get some, because that's just always going to be a very controversial topic, but you won't get a ton. I think people at this point of Jay-Z's career and his life, I think people will step back and say, yeah, sure. I may disagree, but sure. He's the most accomplished. He's the richest. He's unquestionably a great talent. And yeah, sure. There was a time, though, I remember, when I was a teenager, when I was young adult, where that was, you got way more pushback for saying that. Like there were like articles and like on lists and rankings from like 2009 and 2013 and 2015 that were already saying, yeah, Jay-Z's the greatest rapper of all time. And like, it was like, how do you put him over Biggie? How do you put him over Pac? People got really upset about it. And if you think about Hov's career around that time and where he is today, I don't think he's added much to the catalog that would make it more of a case for him to be the greatest rapper of all time than it was in 2009 or 2013 or 2014 when those lists were coming out and people were outraged. Not that much happened since then. I mean, I remember articles and lists dating back to 2005, 2006. But again, I argue then still, are we really like saying, oh, because he did Magna Carta, he's not the greatest rapper? And the 444, I think, was truly a great album. And I don't think it helped his case, but like was just another great thing for his resume. To me, it's like the bubble title for LeBron. Like, does it make him better than Jordan? No, but like, that was legitimately a great accomplishment. Good for him. And it shows why he's still all-time greats. Like, that's how I look at 444. But like, again, 444, Magna Carta, Holy Grail, Blueprint 3, that's what elevated Jay-Z to greatest rapper of all time. No. You're still going to say, well, it's because of Reasonable Doubt, and because of Black Album, and because of Blueprint, and because of Volume 1. Like, it's because of those projects. It's not because of anything recent. So I feel like with Kendrick, we're going to enter that field. I don't think he'll ever be considered the greatest rapper of all time. But I think when you start listing the greatest rappers of all time, and you do all-time list, it's starting to feel like he has to be top 5. To me. But I know by saying that, and I know if I put that out there, if I tweet that today, maybe I will as a field exercise to see what happens. Maybe at night 16, I will then have a conversation about it because I'll see how the reaction is. I'll probably get my back kicked in. But if we're talking about career, legacy, what they've done for hip hop, what they've done for their careers, the stars they became, the accomplishments, the achievements, this guy is a Pulitzer Prize. There's very few people you can put up in terms of his resume to say that he's not one of the top 5 rappers of all time at this point. Now, there will be people who think other people rap better than him, but I could also argue that people who think other people rap better than Jay-Z. I still think Biggie raps better than Jay-Z. I think Snoop Dogg, in his prime, rapped better than Jay-Z. Jay-Z is a great rapper, and like that's my point about Kendrick. Like, you have to be great to even be in this conversation. You don't have to be the best. He doesn't have to be one of the 5 best rappers or most talented rappers or most skilled rappers. It's just rapper as a whole, just as an artist. 27, 26 Grammys we're talking about? Worldwide tour where it's a stadium tour? I know people want to get, you only care about his drama or whatever. Well, rap battles matter. Get out of here with that. You win a rap battle with the other iconic act of your generation, and you win it decisively. I'll give you Jay-Z. I'll give you Biggie. I'll give you Pac, and like maybe I'll give you Nas, but I'm having a hard time. Like you're gonna start giving me who are the rappers better than Kendrick Lamar all time, given where his career is right now. If you give me 5 names, I'm like, that's a lot of names for his accomplishments. I'm not talking about who you think who's nicer, who had better verses. I'm just talking about career accolades. You talk about their overall career work. I'm not talking about who you like the most. Don't tell me, oh, Black Thought is better. I know Black Thought's a great lyricist. I love Black Thought. He's not greater in the large scheme of his career than Kendrick Lamar. It's like, that's the reality. But what I think is going to happen is, I will say this today, and be honest, let me be clear, like, other people have already jumped out this window years ago, and they got their back kicked in way worse than I might. Like, I think Peter Rosenberg had said this like 5 years ago, and people went crazy. Like, it was kind of like the Jay-Z thing. And I'm saying this today, and people will go crazy, especially because Kendrick is very much like become kind of like a polarizing figure now because of the rap beef. But I feel like in 10, 15 years and 20 years, I'll be able to say, like, yeah, Kendrick Lamar is one of the 5 greatest rappers of all time, and I don't think you'll get a ton of pushback. Today, you will. But I think for the history of hip-hop, there's nothing you could say in terms of what he's accomplished that doesn't say he's a top 5 greatest rappers of all time. To me, there's nothing. You can't say he can't battle rap. You can't say he can't sell. You can't say he can't perform. The guy performed at the Super Bowl. Like, there's nothing you can say for his career. Now, you want to say, oh, well, he's just not my favorite. That's totally different. I think that what I actually enjoy more is hearing other people's favorite rappers. Like, who are your favorite 5 rappers? Or 5 music acts, period. It can be any music. Rock music, pop music. Like, because I think the thing about music, unlike sports, is it's super subjective. So there is no, oh, like this guy won X amount of championships. Or this person, especially with like tennis and boxing, where they're individual sports, where it's like, oh, this person won this title and they beat this person, so therefore they're the best. Like, it's kind of like very simple. Serena Williams has this many majors, so therefore she's the greatest women's tennis person, right? Or something like that. Like, it's different with hip hop and music, because how do you judge who's the best? Do you judge it by just sales? Well, sales come with marketing and come with record label BS that like doesn't really necessarily impact or really reflect who the best artists are. You say, well, I do, but who the best actual lyricists are? All right, well, what's good lyrics to you? What's good lyrics to me? Like, that's very different. It's hard to really quantify. So it's tough with this thing. But I think we do kind of a game of, we try to put as many things as possible together and figure out, okay, put lyricists, put commercial appeal, put Grammy awards, put other awards, put just like aura, and kind of mix it in the bag, and we find out who the greatest rappers are. We come up with a list, but it's too subjective, so we still fight. I'm more curious, people say, who are your favorite rappers? Oh, my favorite rappers are, I like, Future and T.I. and Andre 3000. This is obviously someone I'm parlaying somebody from Atlanta. And and I say, oh, okay, cool. Like, I like some of those guys. Some of those guys I don't like, but like, cool. Like, it's not a diss to them. Like, I know they're talented. It might not be for me. But like, I wish people got more comfortable with people saying, oh, that person is not for me. But it's okay. I can appreciate their talent, or I can appreciate their fandom. So many people, I think, and truthfully, I think they have FOMO. I think they feel bad that like they can't get on the wave of like some artists that other people like, so they don't want to tear them down. Or my thing's like, just don't listen, or like say, oh, okay, you like them, cool, that's whatever. Like, I mean, I don't know how many shows Andrea goes to a lot of different kind of concerts and stuff, and we live by a concert venue, and there'll be like shows she's going to say, oh, like I'm going to see Chappell Roan. Chappell Roan was on the red carpet wearing no clothes basically last night, which is interesting, but I'm not interested in Chappell Roan. I'm not interested in some of these folks she listens to. But I'm not gonna say, oh, this person's bad, or oh, they suck. Like I've heard their music. Oh, okay, it's nice. It's good music. Do I want to listen to it again? Nah, probably not. But I'll listen to it in the car with you. It's cool. People feel like they gotta tear people down by saying, oh, this person is great, or this person is the best because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, no, just they're interest, just their taste. It's not a big deal. But I think that's the case also sometimes with the greatest hip hop conversation too. Because again, it's like, is Kendrick one of my five favorite rappers? He's close. I don't know if he's five. He's close. He might be. But that's not. I can't even say for sure if that's the case. Because I think of like J. Cole, XV, Lupe Fiasco, Rick Ross. Like, those are guys at the top of my head, I think, probably I put in the head. But Kendrick's right there. He might be 5. But, you know, it's a tough list to crack. But those are different. Those are random names. Like, again, no one's saying Lupe Fiasco is one of the greatest 5 rappers of all time, or that XV is one of the greatest 5 rappers of all time. But, like, that doesn't mean that my list is whack or I'm listening to bad music. You know, it's people's tastes. But I think with the Kendrick Lamar conversation, we start like really trying to put him on like Mount Rushmore of all time great rappers. Today, people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're just like, you know, you're just glazing whatever." I'm like, it's not glazing. It's just look at the accolades, look at his career. I just think that it's something that it seems very clear to me. Let's go to the chat here. A bunch of stuff going on in the chat. I'll get to some of Ariel's comments. Shout out to Ariel watching here. So we had Rob DeRay saying Kendrick over J. Cole, not even close. So that's another thing for me where it's like, I think when you think of career accolades, yes. Who do I like rapping more? I like J. Cole more. And that's okay. I think J. Cole is a better rapper. I don't think he's produced better projects. And I love J. Cole, but I don't think he's produced better projects. I like his music more. I like his rapping style more. I like his style more. So I prefer, if there's a new J. Cole song and a new Kendrick Lamar song, I'm always going to go J. Cole first. If there's a new J. Cole feature or a Kendrick Lamar feature, I'm always going to go J. Cole first. But in terms of career accolades, I'm taking Kendrick Lamar. He put together, again, we talk about the greatest albums of all time. Good Kid, Mad City. I think you can make a case. One of the 5 greatest rap albums of all time. And again, if I say that today, you're glazing them, blah, 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 blah. I think 20 years from now, people will say, oh, you know, yeah, that's fair. Makes sense. Like, look at what it did. Look what it did for his career. Look at the artistry in it. It's a great album. Like, but when it came out, or the years after it came out, people were talking about how great it was. If you did want to go to that level, people were like, you're crazy. Illmatic. Ready to Die. Reasonable Doubt. How dare you put that in that conversation? It's like, okay. Sure. But again, if I would have said, if you said Illmatic was the greatest rap album when it came out, you probably would have still gotten not much hate. But like, for at the time, some of these albums, like Jay-Z, people talked a bunch about how Reasonable Doubt when it first came out, like, the people who heard it loved it, but a lot of people didn't hear it. It didn't sell that well. People would say this is the greatest rap album of all time, arguably. You were like, what are you talking about? Only 40,000 people listened to it in the first week. So what do you mean? Other stuff in the chat here. I know I'm going long here. I'm actually not going long. It's just I missed 15 minutes, so we're kind of at what would be the 2-hour mark, so I'll wrap up soon. I mentioned earlier, by the way, and before I get to the other things, I do want to talk about some of these other comments about the music stuff. Bob Cutzer in the chat saying EJ is the same issue with some geezers my age, some of whom cannot admit there was good rock music made after 1980. I've heard a lot of people say that too. In fact, my good friend Andrew Perloff says that all the time. And yeah, the people who love Nirvana, or people who love, and you go back to my era, like Green Day or Linkin Park, like you bring up those other great rock or acts, it's like, oh, how dare you bring up anybody that's not, you know, Rage Against the Machine or Metallica or, you know, the Beatles, or it's like, oh, okay, like those guys were also great too. It doesn't mean that there are other people that were great, and if we're looking at everybody in totality, like, yes, those people need to be considered. Those people who love them aren't like completely, you know, and I think it takes maturity and growth to come to that point. Because I love rap. You will never hear me listen to a NBA Youngboy album. I'm not going to sit here and say that NBA Youngboy doesn't have talent, or that he's not that a rapper that really is embraced by the young audience. The young audience is what rap is about. Like they kind of tell you who the hottest guys are. It's not me. It's not 34-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds anymore. So like I feel it's the same way for like rock music and other genre. People say, "Oh, that person can't sing like this." I'm like, "What?" Like those people are clearly talented. They're clearly making a wave because those people who are the young people who inspire what becomes hot, they've decided these people are hot. Like, again, I'm not someone who loves NBA YoungBoy. You know, Future's not a new act, but like some of these people, like they're not my cup of tea. Is a little different than what I'm used to growing up on, but it doesn't. I can't say, oh, those people aren't the top rappers or the greatest rappers of their generation. Like that, that's silly. I can't say that. They don't be who I like, and I'm not probably ranking them number one because I think there are a lot of folks like me who's I would say like they're hitting they're hitting a lot of people, but it's a certain people that they're hitting that they're not touching anyone else. There are Kendricks, there are Coles, there are Drakes who hit a lot more demographics, so therefore they're a bigger artist, which is why they're the quote unquote big three. But you can't like just look at these other people and say, oh, they're not talented. Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, it's always like, oh no, what I grew up on is always the best stuff, which you could totally feel. But like it's silly to be like nothing else is good because I don't like it or I don't understand it. It's one of the things I can't stand about music conversation. Also in the chat, EJ from Bob Cousins say, EJ, in my opinion, you could have a good hip hop discussion with Ari Melber from MS Now. Listen, Ari, I don't got a job right now. So if you wanted to talk hip hop and talking politics is a tough thing to do right now, but I definitely can talk hip hop with you. I mean, I have a news background. I worked at New York One, so it's like I know what's happening in the news and stuff. So I can't talk about it, but it's some dark times happening out there. But if Ari Melber wants to talk hip hop, hell, forget about going on MS Now. He should come on 40 Days and 40 Nights. I'm sure he'd have plenty of good hip hop takes to come on here. Rob continuing his hate for J. Cole. I don't know why Rob hates J. Cole so much. He says, I take Chaperone over J. Cole. Okay, sure. Also, we got, what else we got here? We got one more from Bob in the chat saying, oh, we have a couple from Ari. I'll bring up too. EJ have friends who swear the Rolling Stones were a better rock band than the Beatles. Look at Grateful Dead, who are almost fanatical. Yeah, look at Grateful Dead. Yeah, I know. It's I know what you're talking about because it's just these are iconic bands. So even though I'm not like I've listened of all these bands, I've listened to the Beatles the most, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you like, oh, I don't listen to Rolling Stones like that. And like when they were performing the Super Bowl, I found it extremely boring. For others, it was the best thing in the world. It was one of the greatest performances, and that's great. I'm glad people enjoyed those performances. But yeah, it's like fandoms, and that's what's so unique about music fandom is that we talk about, and a lot of times we talk about the stan culture that's happened with fans. We talked about a lot of hip hop particularly, but it's also in other music too. Like we have the Beehive for Beyonce, and the Swifties for Taylor Swift, and the Barbies for Nicki Minaj. But to be honest, this has always existed. They just didn't have social media to come together and put up their fanatical commentary on their favorite acts. But these, you're right, you're totally right. The Deadheads, the people who love the Rolling Stones, like these Stan fans have been around forever. Like Eminem created the name Stan, like to represent them. Like this has always been a thing. It's not a lot of stuff we think is new in our generation. It's not new. It's just different in terms of just like the formatting and in many ways the exposure that we see to it. Because instead of like just going into your bar and running into someone who's a Deadhead who will tell you Grateful Dead is greater than anything that's ever existed, you had to go on. I mean, you won't go on. You won't go on X. Maybe you go on Facebook. Some older demographic, but you'll go to Facebook or something or whatever, or a Facebook group or whatever, or to compare them to the more modern artists. Again, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go to the barbershop to find the people who are or the nail salon for the people who are the Beehive. Yes, they're there and you can talk to them, but you have to find them kind of through osmosis. Now I can just search Beehive on social media. I can get the millions of tweets of people talking about how Beyonce is the GOAT and Mother Christ herself. So it's just different, but it's different, but it's not like new, is what I'm trying to say. Other stuff we had, man, I want to get some other stuff in here in the chat. And I teased, well, actually, no, it's always funny. I don't think I may have teased it. Again, I can't remember what I teased or didn't tease because it was 15 minutes of the show. It had no sound. I may have teased something funny that happened in a boxing ring. I'm going to get to that later tonight because that was crazy. I do want to talk about that. But my guy Ariel's in the chat. I want to make sure I shout him out. He asked a good question. How do you feel about the short-term low salary for Eugenio Suarez and Luis Arias? He also mentioned how, Eugenio Suarez is a guy who hit 50 home runs last year, and he is making $15 million, which is crazy. So Suarez goes to, that was the more crazy one than Arias. Arias, people aren't valuing the singles hitters as much anymore. So, I mean, there's reasons why. I won't say I don't understand why. I would value them a lot more than they do, especially someone as good as Luis Arias. But I can at least understand that a little bit. The Suarez thing surprised me a little bit that he couldn't get anything bigger than that. The only thing I can think of is people just feel like that really was a flash in the pan. I know he can't play defense. And I know as a defensive player, he's very mid at best. And he's not really a contact hitter. He's not a high average hitter, but they don't seem to care a lot about average. It's just weird that in a environment where Kyle Schwarber, and I know he was coming off the best year of his career and a borderline MVP caliber year. But for a guy like that, who's coming off the year he had, and the best he could do in terms of the money, he gets all that money from Philly, $170 million, whatever it was. And then Suarez, who probably should transition to a DH soon, hits 49 home runs last year, and the best you can do for him is $15 million on a one-year deal. I think this is a very good deal for the Reds. The Reds, he obviously played for the Reds, so I love those where you don't have to do a Photoshop of the guy in a new uniform. You can just put him back in the uniform. So it's a good move for the Reds from that standpoint. He is older, like he's 34 years old, and I wonder if that had a lot to do with it. Where okay, his agent say, like, I'm not giving this guy a long-term deal. The fact the guy had 49 home runs and he can only do $15 million is crazy. To me, he's not that dissimilar to Kyle Schwarber to me, except that Schwarber this year showed he was more than just a home run hitter. But are we convinced that Kyle Schwarber is going to be the guy, the complete hitter he was last year? That's a big question mark. Last year, he was incredible. He had 56 home runs, but then he showed that he can hit for a little bit of a better average, not strike out quite as much. But he still only hit 240. So he has 240. He has 56 home runs. Suarez hit 49. And then Schwarber gets the contract he got. Suarez doesn't. How old is Schwarber again? Schwarber is 32. So it's weird. Yeah, it's really inexplicable to me. I'm surprised that he didn't go for more. I see $15 million. I'm like, man, like, the Mets couldn't sign this guy to be a DH. Like, they have 1 million infielders. So again, it's like, how many infielders do you need? But if it only took 1 year, $15 million, it seems like a steal to me. So yeah, that was wild. Couldn't believe that happened. You got Kyle Schwarber. Not Kyle Schwarber. You got Suarez going for just $15 million to the Cincinnati Reds. But I think that's a good place to leave this one, man. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. Again, for those who were waiting for me to start right at 8 o'clock, I started a little late, so apologies for that. And then I started, and then there was no sound. So definitely apologies for that as well. But for those who stuck with me and rocked with me, and this is the latest we've gone, this is almost 10:40, and we're still live here. I want to thank you guys for rocking with me for this late into the show. Again, of course, all of our shows you can catch wherever you get your podcast for the audio channel. So all podcast episodes get uploaded. When you hear this via the audio version, I promise you will not have 15 minutes of that audio. They'll just be fast forwarded to when I started the sound, and you probably have references to this missing 15 minutes of the show. But for those that are on listening to the audio version, again, check out the New Generation Podcast Network. Find it at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And of course, we're streaming live on YouTube, and that's where also the video will live as well. So YouTube, New Generation Media is where you'll find that. Also, again, thanks for people watching on X, EJ_Stewart is where you'll follow me there. And if people watching on IG Live, Action EJ. Man, that was a little bit of a rocky start to the week to do 15 minutes with no audio. But we got there. We shake it off. Get it going, man. Big week, Super Bowl week. Hopeful to have some really fun guests. It's also a big week for J. Cole. Big album coming out. Excited about that. And we'll see what else we get to, man. But thanks for this. Always, day 16 in the books. Night 16 comes to you at 6 p.m. It is EJ Stewart here for 40 Days, 40 Nights. See you guys a little bit later. I'm out.